Hello, everybody. Welcome to Frame Trap. On this episode, I am joined by Brandon Jones.
Brandon on Frame Trap.
Brandon Jones and Michael Huber.
Thinking of Arkham Knight. I'm wearing the shirt, but I'm just like thinking about it.
There are a few things that I just assume you're always thinking about.
Yeah.
It's like
We were talking about so many things before we were recording, and all it took was
we were
just
talking
like
about
12
a lot of
seconds
things.
of like you not speaking, and then he was like, "Here's
Yeah.
what's up now, folks."
Halloween,
so funny.
Halloween vibes.
I know you keep bringing it up, and it's like
I assume you're always thinking about Arkham. I assume you're always thinking about the Evil Within.
Scarecrows.
I assume
Resident
you're
Evil.
always Resident Evil.
Always.
Shenmue. What else?
We'll get there.
Those are the biggies.
Those
Yeah,
are
we'll
the
get there.
huge. Yeah.
They'll come out.
Always.
I am your host, Ben Moore. You mentioned Halloween vibes. And I was like, for this opening, I'm kind of curious. I think this is a good one. What's the most like Halloween frightened you've ever been? Like, what's the most a movie or a game or like a haunted house or like something in that
Good one.
vibe
Yeah.
has frightened you?
Dude,
The
okay.
most genuinely terrified you've ever
Great
been.
question. When I was a
Yeah.
kid, Ben, so where I live, they would have a haunted house put on by the city. So it was like in the communities, like rec center, you know, like the town's rec center haunted house. So it wasn't like a family thing.
Government sponsored.
Yeah, so it was like the
weird.
official haunted house, and I was like 12 maybe, so I was like a little older, but like pretty young. Maybe I was like 10, but they used to do it all the time. I don't think they do it anymore, but going through this haunted house was the most terrifying thing of all time. One, because it was just scary as hell. There was like the cool room where they have the strobe light.
Classic.
And the guy's like throwing
This is such a good
knives,
motion for strobe light.
throwing knives at the wall. Like, I don't know how they did it, but like knives would just like appear next to you in the wall. Like, what the hell? But at the very end, you think you're out. You think you're safe. You're like, oh, okay. Made it, you know, you're out. From behind the curtain, dude, Jason Voorhees hockey mask with the chainsaw, but like a buzzsaw, no chain.
Yeah.
Just rips it open, like, like right at you, and I just screamed, like ran out of the place.
Do you think this is partly
Terrified 12-year-old
responsible
Huber. I love
for the Jason Voorhees infatuation?
I loved him before that, so I think it was a combination of like I
see.
loved Jason. It was like growing up, it was a little more scary than it is now. Now I just love it.
Chainsaw though, I
Yeah.
feel like not a Jason weapon.
I know. He
But,
uses
hey.
like the saw blade thing in 7 one time, but yeah. But it was terrifying.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, any man with a chainsaw chasing you down, terrifying. What do you got for me, Brandon?
There's I haven't done it in a while because of COVID, but there's they're actually moving locations as well. A group in Los Angeles that does a haunted house that has like crazy stunts and stuff. It's like a narrative haunted house. So you do it in groups and they take you through it. And I didn't know what it was going to like all the times I've done it since, I'm always just kind of like, you know, kind of joking with the actors and like I can see kind of through the seams. The first time I didn't know what I was in for. So when they started throwing crazy stunts at me, like it took a second for my brain to be like, wait a minute, whoa, that dude just flew. Like, and there was one part where it was like, oh no, that lady's chasing you. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna run down the staircase. And I ran, and I was at the top of a staircase, and at the bottom of the staircase, on the same floor as me, was a woman who had that kind of haunted mansion vibe of like, I'm up on the second floor, I'm set dressing. And I was like, all right, and I took a step forward, and she jumped off of the second floor. She had a
Damn.
big white, like, you know, outfit and just like a lot of light on her. And scared the piss out of me, and I did a 180 and took off in the other direction. It was just like you see. It's kind of in movies too, when you see that jolt you get when you see someone step off a ledge, and she did it like at me, and like she would have injured herself, but she like had a pulley. It was like a whole thing. I'm like,
The idea that
and then the
forget
second
it.
time I
Never
was like
forget it.
totally prepped. So like dudes were back flipping and stuff, and I was like with friends, like no, this is cool. It's what they do. But the first time electric, like what?
the fact that both of your stories end with "I did a 180 and ran away."
boom.
That's a
Out.
perfect
Out of
finish.
there.
And then did another 180 and came back, and she was back up on the second floor, and she was like she gave me the like actor wave, like I got you, but you got to go down this way. It's like okay.
It's funny that you're talking about Haunted House is here because this Saturday I'm so stoked. I'm doing the Universal Halloween Horror Nights for the first time ever, and like I'm thrilled because it's
take your time.
Halloween 4 is one of the sets. So classic Haddonfield,
right?
And you got Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you got Walking Dead, you got Purge,
and you got the deluxe tickets. You were telling me, and so it's like
Purge
you got the
yeah. So I'm stoked. I don't know really. I don't know exactly what I'm in for, which is kind of where I want to be.
Only advice I can give you, I've done it twice, and the lines get longer as the night goes on.
Yeah.
Get there before opening. Like, be ready, and then go to the one you think is going to be the most crowded. Probably, like, Walking Dead tram ride is always, like, insane.
Sure.
But, like, go to the one, because you can get on, like, 2 probably pretty quickly, early.
Well, we got the express tickets.
Nice.
So that should help.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So
but because of that, like, take your time walking around.
Right.
Like,
Totally.
thematically, there's a lot of...
Totally. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of cool
I'm
stuff.
excited for all of them. They also have, like, Haunting of Hill House. I want to do all of them if I can, but the 2 are
jealous, man.
Texas Chainsaw
So jealous.
and Halloween.
So sick.
I really want. Yeah, I hope it's good.
Dude.
I hope it's
Take
good.
some
And
photos
it's
for
neat-
me, dude.
What's neat
see.
is for people that have never been to Universal Studios Hollywood, it's on a cliff. And so there's like that... There's a lot of places where you're like on a precipice looking down and seeing other parts of like the craziness with smoke and lights and stuff. And so it just is like it's really interesting vibe.
Yeah.
And it's been cold lately too. Hopefully it's cold this weekend.
Yeah.
Because that's
Boy, it rained today.
That's
Yeah, I
fun.
know.
Like I said, I'm gone. Yeah, just very
spirit,
quickly,
baby.
my answer's kind of boring, but like back in the day, I literally could not handle RE remake Tarantulas. I just like I couldn't do it. And when I played through Resident Evil Remake for the first time with a friend in college, like all the way through, I was like, I cannot handle the, what is it? The Black Tiger, I think is the name of the boss. Just like, I just can't do this. And so like, I had to like walk out of the room in that section. But it's funny, it doesn't bother me nearly as much now.
Now you just blast him with a grenade launcher.
Yeah, well, like, because I with my wife, we played through Chris's route on Switch earlier this year, and I don't like them. I'm not like into the spiders, but I can get through it, and it's not as big of a deal. And so like that particular phobia has calmed down, quite a bit, which is nice.
We need remake
Time
1
to flare,
in VR
time to flare
now.
it back up.
Yeah,
We gotta
yeah.
get Ben afraid again.
Yeah. Remake VR.
Yeah, I think
Stare him right in the eyes.
the only thing that I couldn't handle would be like a real tarantula at this point, just because I don't deal with them. But
Yeah.
Unless got to know him and
spend
spend some time with him.
Yeah,
Gave it a
sure
name.
I could get over that.
Like the one in
Watch
Home
I
Alone.
like 10 years from now I like buy a tarantula. I'm like way into spiders and who knows what could happen. But let's talk about games. Pretty stoked because you reviewed it. I've been playing it as well, not through it, but I have some thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy.
Guardians.
Brandon, have you
I've
dug
not
into
touched
this?
it.
Okay. Because I got to preview it, and then I've been playing the review copy, a review copy of it. And you got all the way through it, and my sentiment in the preview was like, oh man, I'm into this in a way that like I wasn't necessarily feeling by the reveal and all that stuff. And so overview, kind of, what is your thoughts on Guardians? Because you're a big Marvel guy.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah.
Quite a bit, I liked it. Straight at the top, the voice acting.
Yeah.
This is like top tier, tippy top tier voice acting. I was so invested in everything because of how the team banters and responds to each other, just like balancing humor, but also seriousness and drama and bonds, obviously. But just the voice acting and the characters were really, really strong in this game. This game has so much heart and soul, which was, not translated well in the previews from what I saw. I was wrong. Like I was not excited for this game. I thought it looked pretty average, pretty generic. There's been just so much Marvel lately.
I think that's the thing is just the saturation.
Yeah.
Has been.
It just seems like every day.
I also think even subconsciously, like a Square Enix backed Marvel game after the mess of Avengers.
Yes.
You're not. You have some skepticism.
Totally.
Actually. Yeah.
And I'm obsessed with Deus Ex and Eidos Montreal, but then like even watching that route of like, well, Mankind Divided was kind of like rushed out the gate.
Right,
And then Shadow of the Tomb Raider, I'm not a huge fan of.
Yeah.
So
that
just
game
all
is
these,
just okay.
yeah. So just all these factors were kind of giving me preconceived notions, and just I settled into it. And yeah, the story, the characters. I don't want to talk about any of that stuff, but just the characters' story and the decisions. You know, you are experiencing the same story throughout, but it deviates differently. You know, it'll have different things happen within scenes. You know, characters will respond to each other differently. So just being able to like choose dialogue, it's so simple. There's really only two choices all the time, but just having that imprint, you know, that impact, that control over it, really just sucks you into it.
I think that's actually something, like my biggest takeaway from Guardians so far is kind of the consistency of the team decision. Like what I mean by that is how so many things in the game emphasize the team over and over and over again. So you mention the choices that you make, and a lot of times it's like, do I side, you know, like with Rocket or Gamora or things like that.
Yeah.
And so it's like there's that dynamic, but then that carries over into like in combat, it's like, oh, I need, you know, Groot to disable them, or like just there's so many decisions and so many like little things where it's like, oh, I need Gamora to like platform up there to knock this thing down, where they're like very tiny things on their own, but I feel like as often as they can, they try to keep the team at the forefront. Like you have that rally mechanic in combat where you like kind of get everybody huddle up. Yeah, that's what it is. And you like try to like how's everybody feeling? You know, what's the right thing to say here? And I loved that sense where like even though you're only directly controlling Quill, that everybody else seems important.
Yes, totally. Yeah, contextually, what they do in combat is awesome. Just having, you know, Drax run in there, and he's good at staggering the enemies. The enemies have like stagger meters, the really strong ones, so he'll kind of break through that and leave them vulnerable. And like you were saying, Groot can kind of lock them up and tangle them in place. And Gamora is good at single target, and then Rocket is good at just like throwing a grenade out there, like taking out everyone. Combat as the game goes on has diminishing returns.
I can see that.
Because the main problem is the starting moveset for everyone is like the best.
Yeah.
You really don't need any other move from the ones you start with. You get a little more options, I guess, as you go. Like everyone's like, because you only unlock, you start with a move and then you unlock like 3 more. Everyone's like later unlock gives them something that they don't specialize in. So like Gamora's good at damage, but like her last move kind of gives her a little stagger. But like I never really found myself utilizing that. I just kind of like played to their strengths and used kind of that starting rotation of like lockdown, grenade, Gamora, Drax, or like, you know. So
it was funny doing the preview because it's fun because there's, when you're first figuring it out, there's kind of a lot going on in combat where it's like, okay, I need to, like, what does everybody do? And like, okay, how does stagger work? And like, when do I do the elemental blast and all this stuff? And so like that initial process of like figuring it out and kind of getting used to the pace. Because I think it can feel frantic. But now I've gotten to a point where it's like, I feel like I've figured it out.
You're just spamming them.
And so I don't. Totally. I feel like yes. I when you say diminishing returns, I think that's such a good way to say it because I can totally see that point.
But like you were saying, just with the roles of everyone and kind of just the context of everyone, like within the story and just being a team, that never wears out. So it's like the combat becomes kind of just routine of like, okay, spam my things, but you know, their banter throughout changes, and that kind of carries it through. Because sometimes, you know, it'll be an intense fight, so it'll be really urgent, or you know, it'll be just scrubs, so they'll be joking around. So that's really fun.
I think the other hesitation that I would have with the Guardians of the Galaxy game is that specific type of humor, right? Like where the banter throttle is at like 100% all the time, which it definitely is in this game. It's like, okay, if you're going to do that, it's hard to write that in a way that isn't annoying. And I definitely think you can make a case where maybe like sometimes the banter is like too much and maybe you need
Yeah.
a little bit of a break for it. But I would say, at least in my experience so far, like for the most part, it works. And there were
Absolutely.
definitely times, specifically with Drax lines,
Yeah.
where I was like, okay, that's funny.
Yeah.
Like, that is just legit funny.
I laughed quite a bit
Yeah.
in this game, for sure. And you just grow so attached because, like, usually in between missions, it's a linear game. There's no, you're not picking what planet you want to go to or whatever. It's linear.
Yeah.
But usually you'll have time to just kind of hang out on the Milano, the ship. And there's just so much
Yeah.
optional dialogue in this game and optional encounters where you're just like, you can fly off and go, or you can really take the time, like a lot of time. Sometimes I would just be hanging out for like
yeah.
30 or 40 minutes.
Dude, rock that jukebox.
Rocking the jukebox, just exploring everything, like talking to everyone. And then to complement that too, the stages are pretty linear, but the exploration is really, really simple.
Yeah.
You'll be on the crypt path, but there'll be like a wall to go through. You'll go down.
Right.
So like really, really simple. But every time you would go down that wall, the characters would banter and talk
Right.
about it, which, is cool.
And you're totally right. Like your description of the simplicity of the exploration is spot on. There were two things that kind of softened that blow for me a little bit. The first is that if you're gonna make a Guardians of the Galaxy game, like you can't just go to like basic ass places. Like they have to be weird.
Yeah.
And I think the art direction really sells that.
Some
like I
weird
would
places.
go on a planet and be like, this just looks awesome.
Yeah,
I
like, where
love
am
just
I?
This landscape. Yeah, and so I think they did a great job with that. And then I think the other thing is going to nowhere and kind of getting separated from everybody and being just like, okay, just explore the city. Like, just look
Yeah.
at the sights and sounds. Like, get scammed
Totally.
from a street gambler. Like, go to this collector's museum and like look at all the sights. And so it's like, yeah, when you're like on a mission, I think your point is super valid. But it's like, oh, at least there's like this one point where you can kind of breathe a little bit.
Totally. And the ship as well.
Yeah, and the ship.
Like,
Yeah, what you
exploring
mentioned.
that.
Yep.
But then also when you explore those side paths, you get components, which are like crafting parts, which are similar to abilities. Just the whole progression in this game feels kind of tacked on.
It feels a little simple.
Never felt the dopamine rush of upgrading anything in this game. Every 1,000 XP you get an ability point, and like
Every it's linear too, so
super,
it's like there's not,
yeah.
It's not like if you feel like you're behind, you can focus on a thing. So they want to make it sure you can get through it.
Totally.
I feel like so far going to the workbench, I feel like normally when you think of character progression, you think of like this tree, and it's like I could go in this direction or that direction. With this character progression, I kind of just feel like it's like
just go down the
line.
Yeah, you just go down the line.
Yeah, it's like it's just. So it's like I can afford one of these three things, and none of them are that crazy.
Yeah, like I maxed everything out way before the game even ended. So it's like you're supposed to just unlock everything.
It's funny. I remember Spider-Man is so excellent, but I remember like 68% to that skill tree. I'm like, I'm good. I don't need any of this stuff, but I'll buy it.
Right.
But
yeah, it's tough to do.
Instead of components, when you explore, you can find text logs or whatever, which are cool, a little backstory. But most importantly, you can get outfits, which a lot of them are
nice,
really nice. And most importantly, hidden items that are meaningful to a Guardian. Optional things. You'll find a collectible and it'll be like, yo, maybe they'll want to talk about this. And then you'll go and you'll have like full on backstory conversation with each of the Guardians depending on what you found. So like those rewards are awesome.
Cool.
So I have a weird complaint. I hate that there are text logs. Hate it. Not because I am fundamentally against text logs.
Yeah.
I think depending on the game that you're making, it can be really interesting. Like Amnesia: The Dark Descent, it makes sense that you're finding these things and piecing together the story.
Absolutely.
But in this game, when the characters are so overwhelmingly chatty and like they're not the type of characters that would like sit there and like read a newspaper. It just feels so dissonant with the vibe of the game.
Sure.
That like spending, a few minutes like reading over a law, it just doesn't seem like something they would do. Like these aren't the type of character like
on a mission, like picking up a thing.
These are like the whole vibe of the Guardians is like act first, think later a lot of
sure.
times, and so it just felt very weird to me. It felt like a video game like ism that didn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Last of Us Part 2 kind of just like I just threw up my hands with like text logs now because it's like why are you writing the code for your safe on a thing?
Oh my god!
Right,
my biggest complaint in Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah, just like all that kind of thing. It's just like there's got to be a better way.
Which letters are funny because you're doing it because you want to add context to the world. You want to show people that,
Resident Evil,
and you break the context to deliver the context. It's funny.
Yeah. It was just so funny, not to like relitigate this, I guess, but like Last of Us Part 2 is like such a smart game in so many ways, and then it's like, okay, the puzzle is the code is behind, like on the opposite wall of the safe, and it's like, seriously, like, come on. Yeah. Anyway,
to make desensitized to it.
Yeah, I want to kind of mention the characterization again because I am really attached to Quill because they do something with him that speaking of like slowing down and like getting to know a character, they kind of have these Quill focused scenes, I think, that kind of come up unexpectedly and are really cool and are kind of exploratory in a way that I wasn't expecting.
Totally.
And I'm like, oh, I really like this guy. Like, I really like and how they position him as a leader, where they kind of like he's a good guy, but a lot of the decisions, it's like I could see him siding with Rocket or like Gamora here. And I feel like sometimes when you're asked to make a decision in a game, it's like, well, this character would clearly do this.
Yeah.
And I there were a lot of times where I'm like, I don't know. Like I could see this going
totally
either way. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the timer's going down, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, who am I going to pick?
Right.
So yeah, all that stuff is just so awesome. It's like pretty simple, but also like so effective, you know? It just pulled me into this story like head first, you know? It's like you are making a lot of decisions here. And again, there's only the one main storyline, but things play out differently depending on.
It's funny because I feel like I've been playing a couple of games where it's like, this is not a game for everybody, and that's okay. Like, this is a game that's going to appeal to a very small subset of people. And then I'm playing Guardians, and it's like, this is a game that anyone can enjoy.
Absolutely.
Done correctly.
Yes.
You know, like, I feel like whoever you are, whatever your tastes, like, you can get something out of this game.
Yeah.
Like, it is simple enough that I feel like the barrier for entry is so low and you don't need to have really any knowledge going into it. But it's not like so simple that I think it would maybe turn like more hardcore people away from it. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Story's great. It sucks you in. There's like not much else to say, you know? I think we covered it all, honestly. Like just a really cool game, really good, and excited to see what happens in the future. Like, are we going to get more of these? Are they going to go Insomniac style and make a different Marvel game? Like, what's the future here? Is this a one-off? Is this, laying the groundwork?
I do have to say, something that I just appreciate about it so much is I was like, thank God this isn't like Batman or Spider-Man, because those are both phenomenal.
Yeah.
Love them.
Yeah.
Want more. But it's like, I just was like so happy that I'm not like sneaking around a room stealth killing people. It's like that market has been cornered.
Breezy game.
Yeah.
Just action-packed adventure.
Right.
Slows down for some story bonds.
How long is it total?
It's kind of long. It took me like
I
15 to
believe that.
20
Okay.
at least.
Yeah.
Like I really took my
see that.
time though, really tried to explore everything, talk to everyone, do everything, you know. So I feel like I was going Bloodworth's pace on this. Bloodworth always says he's the slowest gamer on the earth, and I was like, I'm going Bloodworth style.
It's not even like an insult or like making fun of him, but
It's methodical.
have our
he is
pace.
probably the slowest.
Yeah.
There have been times where he's like, Ben, you cover this because like, I'm gonna be too slow with it.
Yeah, totally.
And like
totally.
I have the rare experience of cutting footage of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes he'll go into a room and I'm just like, there's nothing left there, man.
Like,
Nothing in the room.
Yeah.
It
I
just
love it.
fits
I
his
love it.
Move
personality
on.
so well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how do you see someone in their element?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. I bet like making decisions like you're going to control Quill mostly, focusing on, not making it based obviously on that might not have been a decision they could have made, but
More comic focused.
I imagine a lot of that's, tricky and risky and I'm stoked they pulled it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feels good. We're in an interesting growing era of games.
Totally.
Feels like 2008 all over again. It's like, oh, here we go.
And some bugs. Be aware. There's some bugs. Nothing crazy. It's like the bugs are kind of just like trying to get through to bother you. They're on the fringes. They're
Yeah.
on the periphery.
I
You're
really
playing
haven't
and
noticed
just like
any.
nothing crazy, but just like every
too
once in a
much, yeah.
while, just like an audio will drop or like,
Sure.
a door won't open, reload the checkpoint. Just like weird things. But they said the day one patch would fix a lot of that, but I obviously haven't seen that. So
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yep.
I think that game is going to surprise a lot of people. Not necessarily like
good times.
game of the year, but
No.
fun.
Yes.
Yeah. Boy, let's talk about something that I am super enthusiastic about, and because of other commitments, I have not been able to put as much time as I like into it, but it has been a blast, and that is Resident Evil 4 in VR.
Can I start this by saying
Yeah.
that I came into the office
Yeah.
and I pass one of the rooms and Brandon Jones is fully jacked in and the volume was deafening,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
Like
He's
I don't even know.
immersed. Surrounded.
I don't even know if he knew I came in.
No,
but
I didn't.
I was down the hall and I just heard like yeah, like that cry of Las Plagas.
Yeah.
It was so loud, dude. So loud.
Man, it's one of those things where I think it is hard to convince people how good it is until you experience it, because it's like, oh, okay, everyone knows that Resident Evil 4 is a masterful game, right? And it's like, oh, cool, they put it in VR, but it's much more than that. I haven't been this jazzed about a VR thing, and admittedly, I'm not a VR guy. I spend not much time at all in VR, but I was like, oh, this is giving me Half-Life Alyx vibes. In terms of how well they're presenting this. But Brandon, as somebody who is playing with deafening volume, what did you think?
I absolutely love it. My shortest descriptor, I told Huber, it's like a theme park ride. It's like I'm in a fun house. It's just and it is so comfortable. Granted, I have done a lot of stuff in VR, and so I went straight to immersive mode. So I'm reaching to my hip to grab the gun. I am moving through the environment. I'm not teleporting, the boat part, I was like, I don't know, this is gonna be weird, and it's amazing. So here's one
Least favorite
descriptor.
part of RE4.
Here's one descriptor to help people understand why it's different in VR.
Yeah.
That fish part's great, but because of how it's cutting back and forth and the cinematic nature of RE4 combined with you having to look at Leon and your environment so you can aim and have situational awareness and everything, sometimes the fish would just disappear, or the lizard or whatever he is. Sometimes, for the sake of trying to scare me, he would vanish, and then I would be moving the boat and be like, oh no, he's gonna pop up right in front of me. I gotta move out of the way. And maybe he's down there, but it's a third-person game, and I'm just kind of focused on where I'm steering. He's down there. He's down there the whole time. So I'm steering this boat, but I'm just a dude on the boat. So anytime I want, I can lean over and look into the water, and he's there doing the pattern. So I got to view this boss fight from a perspective I've never had before, and it was crazy. There were some parts when you play the traditional RE4, you're just like, well, I just can't shoot at him in this part. And in this part, it's like, funk, he's right there. I can shoot him the whole time, because I can constantly see where he is. And that's just it's bonkers.
That's awesome.
With this game that I have played
Yeah.
dozens and dozens of times on different consoles. And, when it came out of the Wii, I was like, well, we got to play it 5 more times.
So it really is interesting how A, transformative, and B, not transformative the VR experience is. It's such a weird space that it's entering, because something about RE4, part of the reason it's so masterful is because of how just like godly the controls are. Like when you play a lot of RE4, you kind of get to this point where you just become like this sort of action hero where you can just like cleave through entire rooms, you know, with no problem because the controls are that tight. In VR, suddenly everything is a threat again, and like space matters way more, and like you kind of feel this like sense of claustrophobia, this sense of like creeping unease that I think adds so much atmosphere. But at the same time, like the controls have been like immaculate. Like even in really good VR games, I feel like there's always that like little bit of like VR fumble where it's like like I can't do this like quite as quickly as I could like on a controller or a mouse and keyboard. Like it's not that snappy.
Reloading is
yeah
tricky. You can kind of tell some shooter devs put more time into it than others.
Yeah, and I feel like
that's a little awkward.
While that is not completely eliminated with RE4 VR, like I am like the way they have everything set up, like how you reload, how you get into the menu, how you like just do everything. Again, not like completely removed from that kind of fumbliness, but like almost completely gone into the point where it's just like I'm just doing what I want to do as I want to do it, and it's working perfectly. Like it is tight. Oh, it feels so good. I don't know. I don't want to speak for you, Brandon. Like, but have you felt that tightness?
That's the thing. I'm playing in immersive mode, so I have it all cranked up to just for me to move and access everything the way the way Leon potentially would. And it is. I'm amazed how fast I'm just like flying through the environment because there's like a little bit of backtracking, and sometimes I'll go to a zone and I'll get like the new weapon and be like, I should go back and save, just in case. And so like I'll go back, and so just again, it's like there's the other thing too is like there's parts where I'll notice where I am and I'll actually like look at the environment. One of the parts that I couldn't stop staring at it was the waterfall. So, you like get down and you shoot the blocks and then they line up and then you hop over, open up the waterfall, all the people go running out and then you go inside. I stood at the top and just looked down at that area for like 5 minutes because it's like, look at it. It's like, yeah, there it is. It's not like, oh, I can kind of creep over the edge because that's where the third-person camera stops. It's like, no, I can just stare at the thing. Like, before I went on the boat ride, there's a little cliff that goes up and just looks at the lake. And I just, just took it in. And that's the crazy thing is that, like, it doesn't look great. It looks like a GameCube game. Like, it looks like, like, they've up-res the textures over the years. But dude, some of the textures are so funny. Like it looks like you took like a newspaper from like the 80s and cut out a picture of a forest and like put it up on a wall, and it's just like waving back and forth. But I'm having a blast. Like I'm so charmed by it. Yeah. So it's like I honestly, I don't think there was a second of this that I didn't enjoy. Like the entire time I've been playing the game. And I'm at the not Leon, but Carlos, I'm at the house.
Hell yeah.
And I think I've tried it like 6 times. Yeah. And like I'm flame grenade, like flash grenade, shotgun, and just getting like overrun.
Yeah.
It's gnarly. It's different.
I want to see that hedge maze in VR.
Oh my God, yeah. Those dogs.
That's immediately
in the rain when you go back to the church and you meet the dogs for the first time. I'm just slowly like creep around like, no. It's sneaking up on me. I know you're there.
It's funny because like, again, with that familiarity of RE4 is kind of cool in taking into this new format because things that maybe you would take for granted, like take on this new life, like the blue medallions. Like now, with like previously the blue medallions is like, oh yeah, this is a thing in the game. I just point and shoot. But now it's like, oh, I gotta like sit there and kind of like line up the shot, and it's like not that big of a deal, but it kind of takes on this new significance. Or like the skull totems, like. Yeah. In regular RE4, you just completely ignore them. But if you want, like, you can get there with the knife and just like hit the skull, and it'll spin around.
Little puzzles. Like, if there's like a globe that spins, like in your classic version of the game, it was just like up, left, and in this, like you got your hand on it. You're actually,
what about like the
even the very beginning where you save the wolf?
Yeah.
You got to go up there and like put your hands on it and open it up, and it's just it's a little bit more.
What about the like the wells with water? Can you like splash the water at all?
That would be cool. I think you can
stuff like that.
Water will take shots, and of course if any of you have been to the edge of the dock and shot in the water before you do the boat sequence. And that was fun. That was like the end of I like got to that point and saved. I'm like, all right, I got to go to work or do something. I was just like, oh God.
Yeah.
In VR, it's very fun. But it's funny we're talking about like old VR shooters, and like a lot of times I was playing like the earliest VR shooters and being like, they're trying. I mean, I maybe wasn't thinking of this specifically, but it's like they're trying to recapture that RE4 magic. They're trying to find like how can we have kind of like a linear game that takes you through a fun thing that's dramatic, but you're not taking it too seriously, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. And it's like, well, it's RE4, and so it's crazy how you get into VR, and like they didn't change. They added a couple things. There's like bats in some places. I'm like, I remember bats right here. Or like maybe I just wasn't like focused on that. It just fits so well. And one of the only things that is bad is to make it fit and I think focus on what they needed to focus on. Anytime like a cutscene happens or even like catching Ashley is like always a cutscene. Like you're just like, oh, I'm in a theater and you watch the thing. When you move a shelf, it's interesting. You stay where you are and suddenly Leon moves away from you and like moves it. And then when you let go, you teleport to where he is. Sounds super jarring.
Yeah.
Is not. It just, they nailed it. Like, so just there are a couple cutscene moments. I was like, oh, I was kind of hoping.
Yeah.
The one thing they did do is when you get on Gigante, you're on Gigante. So like, he's moving around and you gotta like slash it. So I'm like, okay.
I do kind of agree with you because there are definitely moments where they really take full advantage of this new form. Like when you get on the communicator with Hunnigan, it's so cool because you like actually have this thing and you tap it and it opens up and you see her on this little screen. And it's just like really impressive.
I wish.
And then when you get
it
to
was
the
your
typewriter,
camera.
when you get to the typewriter, you can to name your save file, you actually like push the things and then, and so it's really neat. And so it is. I agree with you, Brendan, that it is a little jarring when it's just like, oh, this is just a cutscene that I'm watching. All of the sudden, like it's like I'm watching a movie screen, or like when you do your kicks or something, it's like, oh, I'm watching Leon do this.
But it's like a line they drew.
Yeah,
they were like,
it is
these things we're not going to worry about, and it's like, great, okay,
right.
So like, and again, I'm like 3 hours in, like. You get used to it. You got like I get to a door,
totally.
or I get to a sequence that I remember in the game, and I'm like, okay, I know, I have an idea how this is going to play out.
Yeah.
But so yeah, there's not really a lot of surprises. It's just there's stuff I'm noticing. There's stuff. We'll go into a tunnel or a cave and like look up and be like, what, dude? Nests. There are nests all over the place in that game, and I've never like really shot these. I'm like going into the cemetery, and it's like, and I was like, oh, there's a nest before you get in the cemetery, and I was like, cool, and like look behind me, I'm like, there's another one, like
get a little loot.
So there's legitimate like stuff in this game I've played 25 times that I'm discovering again for the first time because I'm just looking up, looking down, like
fresh eyes,
not moving, and just doing a full 360. Like
I don't know if RE4 will ever get old. Like it's like
they nailed it.
Yeah,
it's like the first Halo. It's every now and then you just like, whoa, what was happening when they were making this game? Like they were just on fire.
Pretty perfect.
Very minor complaint, but I'm using the teleport controls, and there are times where like you'll run into a corner, and you'll be like frantic. You're like, I'm trying to get away.
Yeah.
And you like move, and it will like run into the corner, and you'll just like bump up against it, and it's like, no, like clearly just go past it, like just go around the thing. And so I do get hung up occasionally on things like that.
Half-Life like nailed that.
Yeah.
I didn't even think it was interesting. I talked to Brad, and he's like, no, I played that with full motion controls. And it's like, I didn't even think about it when I played Alex. I wish I'd gone back and forth, but for the
full motion just makes me
it's funny
sick.
because I booted it up today and like loaded up a save, and like if you're Ashley, I like loaded up the save, like, okay, cool. Oh my god. And it's just like Ashley right there, like, okay. But imagine like, dude, in VR, like Carlos running up to you, like, use this.
Yeah.
And he throws the ammo, like you grab it, like, thanks, Carlos, cool.
That's so cool.
You put I got the Red 9 finally, and you put it's like Han Solo's gun, and you like put the clips in the top, and then you
Pops the heads right off.
and then you can set the bullet, or you can just hit the trigger once, and it does this like click, and it's like
Feels so cool.
it's so satisfying when you're done with a firefight, and you're like, oh, I'm done. Pull the shotgun. Okay, I put it. It's rad. It's really really great. But it's like they haven't like smoothed or perfected RE4 in any way. It is RE4.
Yeah.
It just shows like what. If you make something, a good shooter's a good shooter, and so it's fun to like see it adapt into different mediums. And how many times have I played this game? And it just, not only holds up, but gets better almost every time I play it.
I think my hesitation going into it was like, I'm worried that either A, they're going to have to morph RE4 in a way that like makes it work for VR, where it kind of compromises what RE4 is, or they're not going to do that, and it's going to be like too intense and too fast-paced for VR to really properly handle, and neither of those is true at all. Like it's just it fits like a glove, and it's so good, and they did a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think they'll do Village next, or go back to the well, maybe remake.
I mean, even like
do you
Code
think?
I would
Veronica,
love
it's like not
to
a.
see the Spencer Mansion in
Same.
VR.
Even like Code Veronica, like RE4 is a prettier game than Code Veronica, but like, oh, that man, you know, I would love to walk around that
Yeah.
that world. And so
Please.
like
Please.
that's the thing we were talking about
Yeah.
the combat, how good that is. Like there are just some, and they know it in the menu. You start in just one of the churches, and it's like, oh, that's cool. The textures, man. I'll grab ammo and zoom in, and it's just this big, beautiful, crisp texture of all the ammo packs. And it's like, I've never even read this. That's a picture of an eagle. I didn't know. You know, like cool. A photo of Sadler, like the paintings. You just really get up close. Like it's awesome. You see the painting textures, like crazy. You know, and then ugly trees. It's a weird mix.
Yeah, it's
but
funny that you said like it looks like a GameCube game because like I see that point, but I'm like it just looks like a cleaned up version of RE4, which is
Sure.
exactly what I would
And
want.
the lighting's really great. The weather
Yeah.
effects are great. When the
Yeah.
lightning starts to happen and it starts to rain, I mean, it's just wildly immersive. It's very, very
It
cool.
is.
You're in it, but you're also like at a museum. You know, you're also
Yeah.
you know like pew pew, like RE4 is great. You know, it's fun,
It's the kind of experience where
Comforting.
like
cozy. Yeah,
you can just sit like it's just fucking fun. Like
Yeah.
it's just like the epitome of video game fun. It's like here, put this headset on and just like have a blast. Yeah.
when you get because sometimes the merchant is just out in the wild, but sometimes he's like at home. Like you get to his like especially the where you dock the boat and you get around the corner and he's just like got all the weapons laid out and
Love that
everything.
one.
And it's kind of the same thing when you talk to Hunnigan. It'll like desaturate the environment. Everything gets a little dark to just focus on you and like the spot where you're standing. And it does that when you're shopping with him. So you go to a different screen, but he's still there. And so it's fun to like be buying stuff and doing upgrades. And he's just like, all right, like I'm there the whole time. It's crazy to just look that sucker in the eyes,
Oh,
like
yeah.
get really close.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sick.
Mm.
In a similar vein to Resident Evil 4 VR, and I'm actually curious to bounce my thoughts off of both of you because you're both fans of it. It's such a weird story. So I Dying Light Platinum Edition on Switch, I was just like... oh, I'll just check this out. I'm at the end of the game now.
Yeah.
And
love that
I
game.
had started and played like a fair bit of Dying Light, like a couple of times, and now I'm like finally all the way at the end. And it's a game that like every time I play it, I have a greater appreciation for it because like it's scuffed in so many ways. Like it's just kind of a weird, janky game where the story is not that good, and there's like definitely things to complain about and just like weird little stuff, but it has like so much heart, and I am amazed that the Switch version is as good as it is. Like I was like expecting
Is it cloud
to
or no?
No,
Wow.
it's not.
Jeez.
And to say I am impressed as good as it is, there are still compromises, right? Like you look at the Switch version and then you look at another version of the game, and like there's a clear difference. But in terms of honestly visuals and performance for what the Switch is, particularly if you're playing it in handheld mode, I have been really, really, really impressed.
It's a very portable game. Just
Yeah.
the whole idea of Dying Light's like portability. It's like
Yeah.
just get up, go, go, go. So I imagine playing portably, being outside, kind of fun.
It does weirdly work in kind of like a short burst thing because like Dying Light is a game where just like going and clearing a safe house, like the act of getting there and like finding your route and parkouring up to it and clearing the area. And if that's like all you do and you play for 10 minutes and you have to put it down, like that's still a satisfying bit of gameplay. But
That
yeah.
melee combat.
the melee combat is so good.
So fun.
It's so nice to have a game that emphasizes two different things. And actually, my favorite part of Dying Light is definitely the beginning where you have nothing and your weapons are trash and break immediately because like it's a game where like zombies feel like an actual threat. You're like, okay, I'm gonna try to take out like this one zombie with a wrench, and then suddenly I'm overwhelmed because like I just don't have the capacity to fight more than one thing. And so you learn like it becomes a game of not fighting zombies, but like running and jumping over top of them, and that
Yeah.
feels so cool.
The verticality is like a bit. I mean, it's like a joke term here at East Dallas,
Yeah.
but that's one thing that for as much as I love shooters, as much as I love Resident Evil, it's you have to kind of wrap your brain around the linear story that it wants to tell. But like at any point, I could just jump over any of these fences and I'm out of here. It's like so when like Leon or Claire, any of these people are like, we got to get out of Raccoon City. It's like you could, you could very much do it. It's like a car crashed doesn't mean you're stuck there. Like you can climb over the car. But so it's neat to play that. Like it's so scary. It reminds me of just kind of like the floor is lava as a kid. To just be like up on top of a fence or like get up on top of a building knowing like they're just nipping at your heels right there. A very, very fun feeling. And I went like Dead Island, Dying Light. I was so on board for Dying Light because I just played all the DLC and everything for Dead Island. Yeah. Because it was just so much fun to level up and get powerful in that game. And like the more I'm thinking about it now when we're talking, it's just like, it's all about the stats. It's all about you can see that piece that you're carrying. Like,
It's so weird because I despise Dying Light. Or Dying Light, Dead Island.
I really
not like Dead Island.
I don't.
Game bores me to death. But Dying Light, I am all in on. I adore that game. I would play it anytime anyone asks. Like, let's play some Dying Light.
The city is much more of an
Dead
identity.
Island is just.
It's so funny because I really like Dead Island, but Dead Island is one of those games where it's like, I really enjoy this. Why isn't it better? Is like the way that I feel about Dead Island. Whereas I feel like Dying Light is more of a cohesive vision. I feel like the ideas that they're trying to do come together a little bit more in Dying Light. And that makes it more enjoyable. I do have an addendum to that, but I want to talk about the parkour and the platforming and compare it to something like Assassin's Creed, where like it feels really good in Assassin's Creed and it's fun and like I love like the breathtaking moments in Assassin's Creed where you climb something huge and you look down and you're like, whoa. But my complaint with like Assassin's Creed style platforming is it's like I feel like I'm not really doing anything. Like I feel like the game is taking
That's why I love those early ones. It's like a puzzle.
Right, but the reason why I bring up that comparison is in Dying Light, like starting that game and then like getting to the end, it's like truly a skill that you learn, and it's like some of it is automated, like he'll actually like automatically grab on the ledge and stuff like that. But I feel like you have to actually put some effort into like routing and being like, okay, this roof connects to that ledge, connects to that beam.
So fun.
And like, as you get better at that, you're able to put those pieces together faster and you feel it. Like the game allows for that flow to kind of come into play.
You know who also does that every night? Batman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't
I agree.
Sleep.
But you kind of
so does Iron Man.
You kind of look at the I don't know, you just kind of look at the city that way. Like you really start to memorize like, oh, I got to head over there. Oh, yeah. My old route. And you get in a mindset of a runner or whatever I can't remember what they call them.
Freakers.
Yeah, runner. Yeah. They call you runner. And I actually, in terms of getting familiar with the city, I think that's a good point to bring up because this game does not have traditional fast travel. So you open up all these safe houses and you can't just like fast travel to safe houses. They're like, no, you have to run. And I think that is such a good like design decision because it's so essential to what the game is that if you just like took that out, I don't think the game would be as fun.
I agree 100%. Fast travel can take me out of a game.
That's
for
the
sure.
thing about open worlds is you how you shove players kind of back and forth, like the allowances. Because I've had some open world games that are like very Immortals Phoenix Rising is like go anywhere you want at any time. It's fine to go. And it's like no, it fits.
Yeah, totally.
But in
a
survival game, in a game where you're your fear of heights, fear of no health, fear of no ammo,
fear of night.
Then we need to restrict you. I get Red Dead very slow to get places, but I loved it. So like it's you have to change the pace up.
I love the night mechanic, Ben.
Yeah, it's neat
so
that
cool.
they reward
so
you for the more you do during the night, the more you can cash in those points during the day. That's really cool.
It's so awesome.
My big complaint, and I'm not even sure how against I am with it, like how against it I am. But it's so weird because about like maybe 50%, 60% of the way through the game, like they finally are like, okay, here are some guns. And they just break everything else that the game is set up. And so like the feeling that I was talking about of like being surrounded with guns, it's just like, oh, okay, like I just pop, all their heads are gone, they're all dead. And like things that were a huge threat suddenly become trivial because like unlike the melee weapons, the guns don't degrade. And I feel like ammo is pretty plentiful, and so it's like it just becomes a completely different game. It becomes a more standard survival game, and on one hand it's like kind of nice because it's like, okay, like I'm at this point, like I feel this power upgrade, but at the same time it also feels like more generic. It was like it's such a weird like switch. Like the game just suddenly transforms with the guns in a way that is pretty wild.
Hopefully in 2, like they go Walking Dead style and like
Yeah.
they run out of bullets. Like bullets are rare.
Or you'll just probably start with a pistol and then
Yeah.
Dying Light 2, or you get one very early on and like they'll hopefully balance it out more.
Yeah, I don't know.
Are you gonna play the expansion?
I
or
want
have you
to.
been-
The following,
Cool.
yeah. Did you play the following?
Yeah.
That's where you get the dune buggies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty
Oh, I
stoked on it.
didn't.
And,
Yeah, I remember
It's
that. Yeah,
really
that's
good.
right. Remember those trailers? Yeah.
I want to do that, and
Extremely
they
good.
have the Hell Raid thing in there.
Cool.
I never did that.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
the follow-on.
So,
Cool.
but yeah, it's a game that I keep coming back to, and I keep having this great appreciation for. Like it's so much fun, and like I don't know, just
It's so much fun. Like how yeah, it is weird because on the surface you're just like, all right. You
Right.
know, maybe some Ubisoft vibes here.
Right.
You know, Far Cry meets zombies or something, but it just there's so much more heart to it. I don't know. It feels like designed with a vision rather
Absolutely.
than just like let's check all the boxes
Yes.
and yeah.
There isn't. Yes, Huber. I think you're really hitting the vein, because it's like you play a lot of games that like have that like aesthetic of like zombies or survival, but it's just like, why do I always feel safe?
Yeah.
This is like
Yeah.
there feels like there's this real drive and this real passion to create that sense of panic or struggle or like just a genuine survival in
Yeah.
a way that's so cool. Yeah.
Why do I always feel safe? That
Why-
is the
yeah,
best
why do I-
thing,
well,
Ben.
why do I
That
always
is-
feel safe?
When's the
Yeah.
last time
Yeah.
you were in danger
Right,
in a
yeah.
Ubisoft game?
Right.
Ask yourself that.
What-
I really
Especially
like Far
in-
Cry
My
6,
God.
but it's like
Right.
I'm leading this rebellion and
Yeah.
I'm stronger than like the entire army that
yeah.
I'm rebelling against. Yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah,
so
yeah,
good.
yeah.
But also climbing. Because you said,
Right,
you know,
right,
it's,
right.
it's easier now in Assassin's Creed, but it's also not as scary. Like if I'm
Right.
scaling something really high or
Right.
every classic every now and then, I'm like, oh, there's the hey, what? And it just didn't register that I wanted to go there, and you just jump. And I'm like, no, you know, like I'll respawn, whatever, you know, I'll be on that screen and run in circles for a little bit, then I'm back in the game.
Right.
I saw him, Dying Light 2, I saw him like do a demo where he was like climbing up a tower, and it's like, you know, it's
Yeah.
terrifying. It's like,
Yeah.
well, I'm just going to grab this pole
Oh.
here. And it's like, you know,
Yes,
I
yes,
bet
yes,
I
yes.
would grab that pole and be fine, but there would be a back thing in the back of my head of like, don't fall. Like you are just a dude, you know, about 10
Yes.
stories up right now, and there's just like a brick here that's going to between you and death.
To that point, Brandon, the tutorial of Dying Light is actually really cool, because like you have to go through this test where you're kind of parkouring on this building, and like one of the things that you have to do is you have to like run across this crane, and the way that they do the movement is you're like wobbling, and you actually feel a sense of like height and like, oh god, I don't want to like fall off of this. And yeah, also another thing about Dying Light that we didn't mention that I think is really cool, I think not all of them, but a lot of the skills are pretty fun and like add new mobility to it, where it's like, okay, now you have a drop kick, and it's just like, oh, okay, like that completely changes
dude.
the flow of how I fight things, and it's just like kind of hilarious and like over the top, and it's like, douche. And so I appreciate things like that rather than just like, yeah, you can take more damage. You know?
Right.
Something a little bit more static, I guess. So
2 has been delayed so many times.
Yeah.
No,
I hope that.
I
comes.
hope
Well,
so
they-
too.
they-
It's like I'm like stoked for Dying Light 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have a whole like web series that's just very try hard. It's like, no,
No.
just
Oh, really?
just-
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a huge budget hosts. They bring in the dev here with this dev. It's like, you're a host.
Yeah.
You're not some like, you know, outlet. You're the person they paid to ask them these questions. Yeah, it's a weird vibe. But
Yeah.
I bet they just are investing a lot in it. One tiny thing that I'm just realizing now that Dying Light does really well, and games like that, Far Cry 5 kind of had it with bunkers and just this community that had to like get the hell out of the way because this huge force came in and took over, is in a lot of fantasy RPGs, it always bums me out, and it's just something I've had to accept in games because it's hard to make games. And I'll talk to someone that's like, please, I don't know where my brother is. My brother's in some cave that's like a 30-second walk from where that person's standing. And even The Witcher 3, like there are
your pet
moments
peeve.
where it's like, I heard the legend of like the thing I'm looking at over there. Like, so it's tough to make a world that's believable. But in Dying Light and a lot of these survival games, it's like when you have these people, they're like, I need you to go to this place and leave because I can't do backflips over fences. Like
Right.
I'm just not built for that. You are special. You need to help us. So when I like get really far away from an encampment and I finish a mission and like look over and see them, it's fun to think like all those survivors are just camped up in that house. and I need to,
I feel like
get to
lip
speak for
sync.
him.
I feel like lip sync has been replaced by open world distance for you, Jones.
Sure.
Of just like, yo, nobody lives there.
Well,
Why can this person not go there?
No,
Like,
because lip sync, I think people could and should put effort into. It goes a long way. Where this is, I think you'd have to make worlds bigger than as a gamer I really kind of want to have to put up with. It's like I don't
like
want to
Death
have to.
Stranding or
I don't want to
something.
have to like GTA 5. People are like, it's LA. I'm like, it's a 2% of LA. You don't want to drive around LA. It takes forever. You want, a condensed world to explore. But there's just something about being capable and helping people in that.
It's a really good
That's why I'm obsessed with the
perspective,
zombie
Jones. That's a really good
apocalypse, 'cause
point.
I'm like an Eagle Scout. So the whole idea of
Yeah.
like being prepared, having the equipment that you need for the mission. I get so worked up with that stuff.
Cool.
I do think the story is kind of a mess.
I barely even remember.
couldn't tell you one
honestly.
character
Yeah.
this
So-
entire
So a lot of the things that we're praising, like I think a lot of the gameplay and the mechanics are really well thought out and contribute to all of the positive qualities that we're talking about. The story regularly defies that in a way that is super jarring because there's this big baddie, this kind of like overlord, Rice, and like in this world, like you would think the way that you deal with things is like we just take care of that problem or we eliminate it or we try to be practical about it. He's like, what if I take you to this arena and you have to fight off all of these horrors and then you fight a super big guy and then you become Superman and you somehow defeat all of them and get away from all my security guards. And then like a little bit later, he just like kind of does the same thing again. Like it kind of becomes like cartoony and comic booky in a way that flies in the face of this more grounded, realistic gameplay that you saw kind of at the very beginning of the
It
game.
looks like they're definitely bosses in Dying Light 2, but I wonder if that's like a note they really took to heart, and then we're like, okay, Dying Light 2, the story's going to be crazy, and just bit off way more than they could chew. And so that's why it's, they have to push things back because they're like, no, we want to, because that
The
kind
factions,
of taking down those baddies, like in all the demos that I've seen, it's like, oh, here's another one. I think they like all the districts, like, and I love that. That was the first Ghost Recon open world game. Did that really well. You'd go into a zone, learn about the character you're trying to find for an hour and a half, and there they are, got him, and then do it again. Neat.
You know what does that better than anything? Hitman. It's time to get hot with the sizzle. For this one, I thought, boy, I'm really, really curious. I hope we get some hot takes from you two, because we're all pretty big into horror. So I thought it would be interesting, and we can go outside of movies. This can be TV, this can be games, this can be anything, books even. What is the worst, or perhaps better put, your least favorite horror franchise?
Least favorite horror franchise. I'd have to get angry at it. Least favorite horror. Scary Movie.
Does that count? That doesn't count.
No, it doesn't. It's a cheap
That doesn't
answer.
count.
But at least I said it out loud. No, that doesn't count.
Does Twilight count?
Yeah,
No.
but it's so funny. I just watched the first one
funny.
2 weeks ago.
It's really funny.
And it did me good. I
I'm
was
saying,
laughing the entire time.
Horror.
Yeah.
I can start us off. Because I say this because I love it so much. So this is coming from a deep place of love.
Saw.
But
Nah.
why would you go
It's pretty-
out of your way?
It's pretty cheap.
It's probably Saw.
No, it's not the cheapness. It's like you.
For me, it's the cheapness.
Chris Rock, you have Chris Rock. You're like, okay, this is not a Saw sequel. We're gonna say bold moves. That was fucking bullshit. You made the most boring movie you possibly could have made, and the twist and everything was so stupid and paint by numbers that you sold it on the promise of taking the risk and doing something interesting, and you did fucking nothing. And I hate it. Also, Jigsaw was super bad as well. So it's 2 in a row.
Yeah. I would say Saw and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I love the originals.
The original is a masterpiece.
Texas Chainsaw 1, I like it a lot, but I really like Saw 1, and basically I just like the first of those franchises, and then everything after is just why? Why? Because even I know you're not big on Insidious, but like I like the Insidious follow-ups and like Paranormal Activity. Like I like the follow-ups, and it's just it's like Saw and Texas Chainsaw are so huge. They're like mega icons, but like personally, I think everything that's come after the original is just not good for both of those.
I might put my hat on Paranormal Activity because that's the one.
Paranormal.
Oh, dude, so do I. That's the thing about horror is like I put it. Would you like some bad horror? Like, please. I will totally watch it. But like, I think I remember. I mean, I was not into the first Paranormal Activity. Like when there was credits, I was like, I'm not gonna get those 2 hours back.
Seen in the theater?
And
theater?
yeah.
Damn,
Yeah.
really?
No, dude,
Shocking.
the woman in that movie was terrible. Like, dude, I laughed.
Brandon.
When that cut to credits, I was laughing out loud. Not to be like obscene, not to be like Robert De Niro in Cape Fear. Like legitimately like sorry, like she looks hilarious. That's the problem with horror. It's a razor's edge, man. It's so hard. Yeah. I'll forget I'm sorry, this is just a funny story because you said we can bring in other mediums.
Yes.
I'll never forget this moment. I saw Dracula at El Camino College here in Los Angeles, and it was a cool production. They did some really cool effects. But there was one moment where Dracula came in through a window, and he pushed open the window door, and it bounced back. And he put his hand up and caught it and pushed it open again. So like nothing broke, nothing. There was no clang. There was no like costume getting caught. But it was over. I was like, anything you're gonna do for the next hour and a half, you're done.
Shattered,
because you have to maintain that illusion. You have to string me along the whole time. So yeah, it's tough.
That's really funny.
When stuff like that gets taken out. And so I think Paranormal Activity. I was so interested. I was so into Blair Witch when it first came out because I was a film major at the time, and so it was just like porn. Like it was like, oh, that's such a great idea. Why didn't I think of that? Like, and so Paranormal Activity came along. And you're like, again, it's so cheap and genius. And every time I would see one, it's like I feel like there's so much more you could do with this, and like none of them did. Like even Cloverfield was like almost like you can.
That's
I feel
so
like you
funny.
Can really slam dunk this concept. It's just nothing.
Because I had the exact same experience because I didn't see Paranormal Activity until later, but by the time that I had seen it, it was my senior year of high school, and I haven't seen it since then, but it was like so hyped up, and people were like, oh, this is so cool, and it was huge. And I watched it, and I was like, this is so lame. Like, I just had that experience, and it was so negative that I have not gone back to the series since that first watching. So I would like to challenge myself and see, like, upon rewatching, if I could appreciate it.
The newest one was the only one I don't like, and then now they have like it's like kind of secret, like it's shrouded in mystery, but they have one coming out on Paramount Plus or Peacock, one of those streaming things.
Saw that, right.
There's like a new one coming out, and like there's no details. Everyone is like, is this a sequel? Is this a prequel? Is this a like what is going on?
Because I love Blair Witch. I think Blair Witch is fantastic. But I need to. I should make a mental note and rewatch Paranormal 1.
But it's kind of, it's like it happens in games. Like a new genre comes out or somebody really like does some RE4, like does something Spider-Man 2 for PS2 that you're just like, oh, neat. I can't wait to see where this goes. And then it's just kind of like all the found footage things are like blah. Is found foot. What's VHS is like. I
need to watch VHS.
I think it's my favorite.
The new one is good.
There is specifically a 10-minute chunk of VHS that is some of the wildest, gnarliest horror that even going back and knowing exactly what's going to happen. Wow, it's chilling. I mean, it's some really cool stuff. Yeah. And it has that kind of cabin in the woods funny vibe too, where you're like kind of that doom, like, just like this is so intense.
Totally.
It's I
didn't like Viral, but I like 1 and 2.
I think it was like a year or two ago. I was like, oh yeah, that one, and it's like in Japan. I was like, oh, I wonder if that one Japanese part in the first VHS holds up. Oh yeah,
it's sick.
So crazy.
Huber, I think it's another classic case of expectations, where it's like when everybody.
I want to talk about that next.
When everybody is like, oh, this is the new big horror thing.
Yeah.
Like you go in with, like you want that to happen, and so you're not able to, I think, appreciate it on a smaller level. But now that the hype is dead and buried, it's
like a franchise, But when you saw Paranormal 1 at the time, for me at least, it was just like fresh and new. There were no expectations, and that can just kill like a horror movie for me at least. When everyone is just like hyping it up.
Yeah. Well, that's why it was interesting. We did tier maker for horror franchises, and it was so tough to think about how I feel about all of it because it's like every time a new image would go up, I'd be like, I love the first one, like every time. It's like,
Horror is so interesting to me because it's like one of the only things where I can enjoy it even when it's just awful. Like I don't know if we have the capacity to get into it here, but like Halloween Kills, I don't think is a good movie.
It's bad, but I loved it.
But but I had a great time.
Right.
But it's like I could sit here and like be like, this was bad, this was bad, this was bad, this was bad.
Yeah.
I would be back. You know, I'm gonna be there day one. Yeah,
Day
right.
one.
And I love that. I think it's good to have those things in your life that you can enjoy in spite of themselves.
I think it's like the fourth or fifth Chucky, where he's in like a grave and she's got a revolver and he's like, "Come on, hit me! I come back! I always come back!" And then the music cuts out and he's like, "But dying is such a bitch!" Shoots him. It's like there's a movie that understands what's going on. Nice.
Oh, that's very fun.
It's a fun genre. I don't want this month to be over. It's so much fun.
Man,
I'm watching some creepy shit.
I'm almost done watching the entire Halloween franchise, and like Child's Play is like on the list. It's
Watched
very
Hellraiser 1 and
first
2
one,
last night, and that's a fun.
Which
Child's Play
one?
one is
Hellraiser
such
1
a
and
10.
2.
Oh my God, Hellraiser! Yes.
Yeah, I like how 2. I don't think I've ever seen 2, and I like how 2 just picks
I think 2 is good.
bunch of characters come back, and
It
creepy.
Hellraiser 1 and 2 have just like excellent vibes. Like just they're just so those are
Like they're
gnarly
straight.
movies.
Yeah, the first one.
Yeah, they're directed by a person.
Yes.
Like where you talk about like a tour ship, and it's like, what's the role of a director? It's like, watch that, and that was a guy.
Good call.
With who wanted to make a weird movie, and he did.
Yes. All right. This Sizzle is brought to you by some wonderful shout-out to your patrons. If you want to find out more, go to patreon.com/easyallies. If you want to be shouted out on our various wonderful podcasts, we have quite a few of them. I was thinking for this one, after I say the sponsors, pick a guardian.
Pick a guardian.
Pick a guardian. Yeah. We'll see who you pick. All right. Shout out to... Oops. Hold on one second. Shout out to Elthanas, Greg TheDarkKnight Kettering, Caleb Togi Crawford, and Nick.
Shout out!
Oh, that was good.
Wasn't I supposed to say it?
You said that's how Groot would say shout out.
Oh, say shout out like the Guardian.
Well, no, that's how he would do it. That's how he would do it. Yeah.
You did it.
You nailed it. Yeah, you did it.
That's the thing about you, Hubert. You stick the landing and you don't even realize you did it.
Yeah.
Unintentional
you vault
stick.
and
that
land
was
perfectly, and you're like, what's happening?
Yeah.
You know what's funny? I didn't realize this until we were doing the Sizzle, but 5 out of the 6 games that we're talking about are either Halloween or horror themed. Yeah, and so the next one is Alan Wake Remastered, which I have not had a chance to dig into, but boy, I've really wanted to. It's
Thank you
so
for reminding
awesome
me the moment RE4 VR is over.
that you've been digging into it. Obviously, a big fan of Alan Wake. How does it hold up?
It holds up.
Because I've seen people say that it doesn't.
It holds up. Not as much as I would have liked it to, though, admittedly. You know, like the first one, or back when I first played it, when it came out in 2010. It's that old now.
Yeah, Jesus.
I feel that 11 years for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. That tracks.
One of my favorite games of all time at the time I played it. You know, I loved Remedy.
All time.
I was obsessed.
Yeah,
with
I liked it a
Alan
lot.
Wake when
It's
it came out.
atmospheric, and it has.
Yes.
Like, if you'll permit me for time, there's one moment in that game that will stand forever. That
Yeah,
I was.
is it-
I remember finishing, and it's probably not what you think. It's very subtle. It
Oh.
was
The
just.
gas station?
No, it was the.
The lodge is what sticks out to me with that game. Yeah.
You're listening to a guy in a radio the entire time, and
Pat-
you get to the radio station, you meet the guy, and it was like, oh, it's a guy.
Pat Maine.
And like he's talking like right when you walk into the room, kind of GTA 5 style, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I was just hearing, oh, cool.
He's incredible.
And in terms of like open world
Incredible.
connection, that just kind of synced the map for
Like
me, and I was
being
like, nice.
Jones, dude, fuck. Being out in the woods and like flipping on the radio you find, and he's just like, beautiful night tonight.
But you leave the radio,
Yeah.
So it's not like the radio shuts off. Like
Yeah.
you got to play the game, so you got to keep moving, and then just slowly his voice gets quieter and
Well,
quieter.
you wait for the
and quieter,
music.
and then it's
When you
gone.
wait till he goes away, then you walk away.
But it just that sound, the loneliness you feel, like time to go back into the
Totally.
woods. You know, got to get there.
You think of him being all cozy at the radio station, you know, and
Right.
just it's just so absorbing, this game.
Yeah.
But there's a couple things, you know, that are different this time. One is visuals. You know, it's remastered, but like, I just kept thinking about technology and video games and graphics and how they age. When this originally came out, like the visuals contributed to being one of my favorite games of all time at the time because it was just so gorgeous. Like the lighting and just like dark versus light, like running and escaping into the light was just a feeling I had never felt. You know, you felt so vulnerable, but then like safe as well when you would get there. And it looks good now, but like obviously not that good. You know, when it came out, it was just it was up here, and now it's, you know, an 11-year-old game. It's aged. So that can't pull it up. You know, the visuals now can't like raise the entire experience like it was back then.
It's so funny because I wonder how much tone has to do with that because like playing Resident Evil Code Veronica, for instance.
Yeah.
You know, old looking game originally came out on the Dreamcast.
Yeah.
But the the dialogue is so overwhelmingly corny that it kind of fits.
Yeah.
And so, you know, Alan Wake, where it is trying
Very
not
serious.
always, but it
Yeah.
is trying to be more serious and spooky and
It was weird because I think about, you know, Resident Evil 2 or Resident Evil Remake, which are older but like still look phenomenal in their own way.
Games of all time.
So it was like a weird. I guess maybe when you're going for realism, I don't know. There was more to think about. I was like, I don't have a fully formed idea, but there's something about the way visuals age that can be for better or worse. And in this case, it's just like it's not as powerful as it once was. But the other perspective is I've played Control now.
Yes.
So, you know,
and in terms of like movement in Control and just action,
yeah, but just the lore and the context and like what is going on now is completely different. I look at this game with an entirely different lens. So that's been so fun. Connecting all the dots, putting the pieces together. You know, I've not played Alan Wake 1 in so many years, so it's like a brand new playthrough in a lot of ways. So that has been just so fun, just connecting it all.
I also remember being charmed by like it's a shooter, but like your arsenal's not flashy.
Yeah.
You know, and even like something like Resident Evil is like you get a rocket launcher eventually and you're chucking grenades and stuff. Whereas like I just remember kind of that Last of Us. Like I just remember like there's something about a revolver in Last of Us and Alan Wake that just you really feel the impact of those shots. You really savor every last bullet that you have.
Yeah. But the combat holds up. It becomes familiar pretty quickly. Yeah. You know, you shine your light on them, you shoot them a couple times, you move on. That kind of plays the same way throughout, you know, as games have been getting more complex, more advanced over the years. Like that is really simple. Yeah. But still effective. Like, you know, running from one light to the next, or like, all right, time to leave this safety of this light, and then a lot of shadow people just come at you in the woods. Like that is still such a powerful feeling in that game. And just the sense of place, the very first act, you're standing on a cliff and you're like, yo, I got to get to that gas station for help. And it's like, you have to get there, you know, and you really feel that journey. And when you get there, it's all lit up. You feel...
I compared it to Last of Us, which did a really good job, and 2 as well. But like I remember noting it when I played Last of Us. I'm like, wow, that's fun when they point at stuff. You know, when they notice, like, okay, let's take a breather. You see that? That's where we're going. And then you get there and like, oh, cool. Thank you.
I thought of Naughty Dog.
It's like I'm immersed the whole time, but then it really like I put my seatbelt on in that moment. Like, all right.
I thought of Naughty Dog a bunch of times when I was playing this. Like they clearly looked across the aisle to Remedy. You know, they love storytelling in video games, cinematic storytelling. And there were just so many times where I was like, oh, you know, the way the characters are walking around talking, or like the way the set piece is going down, like a lot of Naughty Dog vibes in there for sure.
You compared to Control, which I think is interesting because something I think that is so effective about Control is how, despite how abstract it is, how much like the world of Control feels like a singular place where it's all kind of like seamlessly blended together. I think about Alan Wake and just like Oh yeah, they're just like thermoses to collect, and I could see it feeling
Yeah.
like more sectionalized and less cohesive than something like Control. Is that true?
Yeah, those are whatever, the thermoses, but finding the radio broadcasts really sucks you in. And my favorite, of course, Night Springs.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I did not appreciate these when I was in college when this game came out.
Really?
I liked them. I watched them. I was like, oh, it's fine. Like I was probably just a little more serious, a little more like, no, I gotta go. I don't have time for this.
That's so
you
funny.
know.
That's so
now I'm
funny.
just like, yo, give me the lore. Like, let me watch these. And every time now, I just like post up and watch one. They're so good. Like that. Out of everything in this replay, I have a newfound appreciation for the Night Springs TV show that just
It's such a funny staple of that dev. They just gotta bring weird video into everything. And like,
I know.
And
Man,
sometimes it works.
Remedy just like wears their heart on their
They're having fun.
sleeve.
They're having
like,
fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're making lots of things that they believe in.
Yeah.
Like, really, really passionately.
Yes.
Really excited to get to the DLC because
I didn't do the DLC either.
I never played it.
Yeah, yeah.
American.
No,
not that.
The
There's-
Signal and the
yes,
Writer.
yes.
It's
Right.
Which
Wait, I might have actually played those.
yeah. I never
don't
played
remember
it.
that.
So
I don't think
that's
I
going to
did.
be fun.
Cool. Yeah.
Playing brand new content for me in an 11-year-old game. Like that's always such a fun feeling of like, oh my God, I never played this part of this game.
Are they segmented in the menu, or do you have to do it all in
It's in the
sequence?
menu, yeah. You can do Special 1 and Special 2.
I wish they bundled, just for the sake of completeness, American Nightmare in there.
I agree, 100%.
Because I played some American Nightmare, but I didn't
Blood
get all
hates
the way
that
through
game.
it. Yeah.
Blood gets all incensed whenever I mention it. Very mad.
Not as good as the main game,
Breakage.
but yeah.
Yeah.
One criticism I hope Remedy is watching or the devs on this. Big criticism is quality of life stuff here. When you finish an episode, you know, I do an episode a night. I've done 5 episodes, so I played it over like 5 nights. You know, I have a couple more. When you finish an episode, there's no way to go back to the main menu. Episode ends. It immediately goes to previously on Alan Wake.
Oh man, you gotta have
Gives me the recap and then like shoots me into the next episode and like auto saves. So then every time I come back in, it's like already at the start, you know? And it's like, yo, let me freaking go back to the menu. So
Right.
next time, tomorrow night, when I pick this up, I can get the recap and the fresh start. So patch that.
I never really thought about it, Huber, but the like getting to the end of a chapter, an episode, or whatever, and being like, "Would you like to save?" is like such a good feeling. And I
Save and
I
continue,
didn't-
save
I
and
don't-
quit.
Yeah, I don't think I ever really appreciated it until you were talking. I'm actually playing a game right now that I can't talk about just yet that does that, and it's perfect for it. Where you're like, "All right, like I
See you
feel
next
good.
time.
See you next time. I'm gonna put you away for right now." Yeah.
So I wish they did that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd
Man,
say
I wanna-
overall it holds up. I would say as a remaster though, if you have access to the PC version,
Yeah. I
it's
do.
It's cheaper, and I don't think there's really enough here to warrant $30 if you already own it or the PC version. Like the remaster's solid, it brings it up to 60. The cinematics are still in 30, so that can be really jarring. No like HDR
like that's
and ray
pretty
tracing, which would be such a showpiece with the lighting in this game.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a bare bones remaster, so it depends on how big a fan you are.
I could
but
see Remedy like dropping that just next year out of nowhere.
Totally.
Like we did it, we figured it out. Like, oh.
Yeah, a few months down the line.
Nice.
Like
Well,
maybe
I
they
haven't
wanted
played
to
it,
get
so-
out before Halloween or whatever. Patch it later on, but something to note.
Less serious, but still in the spirit, is Costume Quest.
Yay!
And
Right, that looks
I was like, Brandon, what do you want to talk about? I was not expecting this, and so it's a cool thing that you're bringing, Brandon.
What we can do, I finished Costume Quest 2. I'm still working my way through Costume Quest 1. If I could seriously get to like October 30th, I'm going to just like phone off the hook, tell everybody like, I got to finish the, it's like a goal I set for myself this month. Because I never did finish Costume Quest. I got stuck at one point. And I'm, reading all these like scary books or just, not scary books, but like Halloween themed books with Milo. Like I'm just so crazy in the season. And so like right at the beginning of the month, I'm like, I need something. And it's always been the Castle Crashers. There's just some games like I've never finished.
It's so funny that you said like because the way that you started that is you're like, I'm reading these Halloween books, and in my head I'm like, oh man, Jones is going through like these Stephen King epics.
Right, yeah.
And so like now I'm envisioning you reading like
Goosebumps.
to Milo. Yeah.
I'm in book 3 of The Dark Tower with
Yeah,
him, and
yeah.
he doesn't understand any of it, but he will.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to play something that's just very classic, very straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
Like the worst thing about Costume Quest is it is extremely bare bones, but it's a kind of game that you should, be able to play in a short amount of time and, not have to invest a ton in. But yes, for anybody that hasn't played it, your sister gets kidnapped by goblins, and you have to go around and check all the different houses. And some people are like, "Oh, hey, what's up? Here's candy," and then candy's like XP in the game, and you can use it to like buy stuff. And if they're not, there's a goblin. You got to fight him. Turn-based. You start out as you become what you are going on Halloween as a robot, and then you later get like a character, and you get more people in your party later. And you have like a special ability, pretty straightforward. There's some fights that are actually kind of tricky. It was very clear, like I have to do a very specific thing. Like there is an order. Like I do not have a lot of wiggle room here in terms of what like I can do. There's not like stats or buffs or anything. It's just like, nope, I got to do that big attack so I can take out that one guy. But there's so much charm to it. It's Double Fine. And there's not a lot of games where you go trick-or-treating. Like there's a lot of games that have Halloween in it and have like Halloween as the backdrop. But it's really fun. There's one gal who's walking around as a witch, and you go talk to her, and she's like, I prefer the term Wiccan. And like that's all she says. But it's just I love that vibe.
That Assassin's Creed Valhalla quest, Jones. You do that one? You remember that?
Yeah. And I didn't even.
wish I had that saved.
And I didn't even realize where I was. Because I got to that
so fun for
zone, and I was like,
group
"Oh, this
stream.
area is great." And I'm like walking past jack-o'-lanterns,
Yeah.
like la 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 la, and then I finally they were like, "It's time for the harvest festival of pumpkins." I was like, "Oh, that sounds. Oh, it's how I'm such an idiot." I was standing here the whole time. Yeah. But it's just such a great. I'm playing it on the Epic Game Store, and it's just such an easy way, to celebrate the season, and
Totally.
just a lot of fun NPCs, and like I said, it's got a little bit of difficulty to it. You could probably flex. Anybody who plays a lot of turn-based RPGs probably be like, oh, pish.
So that's actually my
can
question.
breeze through this.
Is as I've gotten older, I've had a deeper appreciation for complex battle systems, and like that becomes like kind of a driving force for me in terms of my interest for role-playing games. And like on one hand, like having a simple, straightforward, breezy RPG, turn-based RPG sounds satisfying, but then there's also like a piece of me in the back of my mind where I'm like, am I gonna get bored of it?
Right.
Like does it do enough to keep your attention, I guess?
Yeah, I think it's quick enough. I just think, and it specifically the difficulty, I remember there's like active, like you set up the spell, but then there's like a sweet spot.
Yeah.
And like in one fight, it's like if you miss those, you're gonna lose this fight. Like you have to like just this once. It just doesn't. You can just kind of feel the vibe of the world in terms of like when you do these fights, because it's not just the fight. Like you go up to a door, and it's like, oh, trick or treat, and you're like, I don't know, and it's always like scary, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So even if it's just a normal person, it's like, duh, and they show up and they're like, here's some candy, and you're like, okay, cool. And it's funny because like if it's a goblin, they're like, I was watching my favorite soap opera, and you're like, well, let's fight. And so that. That kind of chuckling going into something does a lot for you, just to be like, well, I'm not really going to strategize here, or there's not really a question like to what I can do.
Sure.
Strong Saturday morning cartoon vibes.
Oh, yeah.
He's strong.
But, when you go to their house, they like shut off their lights, because so you can track like how many houses that you've been to. And there's just a great kind of goofy Peanuts, but like a little racier kind of vibe with all the kids. Like there's one, there's like a whole gang of kids that dresses up as Abraham Lincoln, and you have to learn the password. And then when you learn the password, you can tell them all. I think it's like the Emancipation Proclamation or something, and then they all move. And if I bump into one of the guys or like hit him, he's like, oh, he says some like Lincoln quote. He's just like, can't we all get along to get through this strife? And so there's just that kind of like bonkers vibe. There's one kid dressed up as a skeleton named Brandon, and I got like a screenshot of him.
Nice.
Like,
Nice.
Good to see you, Brandon. But instant jolly Halloween, but effortless Halloween vibes. And I actually did get went through the neighborhood, and then I like got to the mall, and that was like just a great done. That was like 2 hours of the game. Cool. I'll come back and get Stranger Things season 3 vibes at the local mall.
Yo,
God, I love that game.
Season Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Stranger Things 3, the game is so good. Don't skip it.
And one camera angle, so just really easy to. You get roller skates at some point, so you can just, that's like your robot ability.
when it comes to games, I try not to skip as much as humanly possible.
It's impossible right now.
And there's still like a mountain of things that I miss.
It's impossible.
I mean, he said the word Alan Wake, and I was like, oh,
Yeah, I know.
Dude, I did it.
Consequence, you're making consequence.
Dude,
That's so
I
delightful.
did an editorial for Cup of Jones where I really rattled them all off. I went console by console. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, here's look at all this crazy stuff. I downloaded just for kicks. I'm like, I'm probably not going to play this. Downloaded Deadlight, which is like a platformer, side-scrolling platformer. You jump around the zombie apocalypse. Downloaded Victor Vran, the like Diablo-esque game. Downloaded Sinking City. I own on like 3 consoles. I've never played it.
Yeah.
I own it on Switch, PlayStation 5, and PC.
I scrubbed down on that one.
Like,
The most depressing thing
it's so my jam.
is
but
when you like
Darkest Dungeon, like never
install a game that's like 100 gigs and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna play this, and then like you forget about it, and a month later, without like ever hitting the play button, you're just like, I gotta uninstall it.
Yeah.
There's so much. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
There's an embargo I have, just FYI, that like almost made Frame Trap. I was like, oh, it's like 2 through 3.
Hey,
days
I got
away.
one of those
And
too.
I've beaten it. The review is written, and I love this game, and I
Yeah.
can't say a word about it.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm in a somewhat similar position. Yeah. The last thing that we're going to talk about, I've just been putting so much time into it still that I feel like I have to, but we don't have to spend a ton of time. I cannot quit Dead by Daylight. I can't do it. Like,
It's great.
Yeah,
I love
no,
it.
it's-
I love how much you love Dead by Daylight.
dude, like, just because A, it's me, and B, because of this job, and C, as we just said, there's so many things competing for my attention. Like, even if I get really into a game, like a multiplayer game, like, I just can't spend that much time on it. Like, you know, a month or a couple months, like, at most. I've been playing Dead by Daylight, like, pretty constantly, for the most part, for, like, a year or 2 years. I
What
don't
are
even
your
know how long
gains?
it's been. What's
So
that?
like, what do you have? I mean, this sounds off-putting, but like, what do you have to show for it?
The
You know, like,
way
what
that
did
you phrase
get?
that is what's what are you getting at? with this?
Your gains. Well, but like, what do you have in that game that you got from that playtime, and not necessarily like money I could spend right now? Is there a
So you're asking,
bridge
like,
there?
is the essence of your question like why is it having such a hold on you?
no, literally monetarily? Like, is there
Oh.
any like, is there like an experience level, or is there something?
Is there a battle pass?
Is it easier for you to
Oh.
terrorize people because you had
Yeah.
to put this much time into it, or is it something that I could just drop $200 and get caught up to you, and
Oh,
or like I
well,
also got all those emblems too, or whatever?
I mean, yes and no. So to get into the monetization, there is a battle pass. They're constantly refreshing, and you can pay to get caught up on the battle pass. So there's that, and there's like a bunch of cosmetics that you can buy, but you're not like buying skill. And so I think that is why it has been so interesting for me. Is last year, really, I like would only play Survivor, but now I've been really getting into Killer, and that's my favorite thing to play. And like the killers are all so different. So just because you like spend time and get good with Leatherface, that doesn't mean you can play Nurse for shit, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like it becomes an entirely different game, and it really is like so skill focused, and it's crazy. Like it's gotten to a point where I can immediately, like if I'm playing Survivor, like in the first 5 minutes, it's like, okay, this is a good team, this is a bad team. And like there is so much skill that goes into each individual action. So speaking about survivors, it's like having map awareness, like knowing where the generators are, knowing like when to commit to an action like repairing, or when to flee, or like how to properly loop a killer, or like realizing like, okay, this person is being chased, so I need to go and like save this other person, and like what all the various perks do, and
Yeah.
being like, oh, okay, like this killer is running this build, so this is how I counteract it. And it's like the skill ceiling like is so immense that I'm like, after like what I think probably hundreds of hours in this game, like I'm still learning all the time.
Like,
yeah.
Like, you know, I don't have to tell you that Resident Evil's amazing. You know, it's like, so anytime I slight Resident Evil, Hubert gets a little rustled sometimes. But
Yeah.
like, there are moments in Village where like you have to go somewhere and hide. And like, it was actually kind of boring in repeat playthroughs. So I was like, okay, I'm in the closet. Okay, have you left yet? Okay, now I can go and do the thing. And in a lot of ways, like in survival horror, like it's hard to capture that magic because there's 2 options here. It's going to catch me and I failed, or it's going to walk past me and I'll get through this area. Dead by Daylight has like captured that cinema, like, you know, just
Yeah.
like
Oh,
he's
totally.
right there, and I think
Yeah.
he walked away. Okay, phew, I got it. Like,
Yeah, Jones.
effortlessly. Like whenever we've played a multiplayer, like that's never not there.
Yes.
Like some matches go quickly, or you know, but like it's it's harrowing. Like it's so funny. Like, and you were talking about knowing the villains. Like you got to know that as a survivor too. Like if you don't know how their abilities work, you're toast.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely toast.
Yeah.
And like it doesn't happen to me all the time, but totally like there will be moments where it's like, oh my god, like Ghostface just popped up out of nowhere, and like it'll get me, and it's like it happens just rarely enough that it feels special. And like that's the other thing is this game has been going for so long now, and it's so popular that like it is like this is such a lame way of describing it, but it's true. The Smash Brothers of horror, like
Totally.
it is so
Totally.
fucking cool
Yeah.
to be walking around this like immaculately realized multiplayer version of the RPD, and like
Nemesis.
Nemesis, and he just like the little touches.
Pyramid.
It's like he just like throws them onto the hook with one arm. Like other killers have to like lift them off of their shoulder and like put them on. He's just like, ugh. Oh, it's so cool, and the music.
If the rights weren't so stupid with Friday the 13th, like let's get.
I think
in
I read
there.
something
Come
recently where it's
on.
like now it's possible.
God.
Like something happened with the rights where the
Yeah. That's why there hasn't been a movie in so long because it's just a battle.
it is the one thing
It's the
that is
last
missing.
piece.
Is I also really think it'd be funny if they put Chucky in there somehow.
Yeah.
But Friday the 13th. Yeah, I agree. Jason needs to be there.
Chucky running around.
Yeah, no.
You're
Yes.
slower, but you're like impossible to
You're
see.
attacking
Yes.
people's
So, like-
legs. Just
So like, if I know you're close and like look over the waist high wall,
Yeah.
like, you know, like you climb up onto the waist high wall.
Oh, it'd be so sick. And like to get back to like the specialness of this game, like obviously, you know, playing as Pinhead or playing as Nemesis or playing as Leatherface or Freddy or whoever it is, like obviously that's cool, and I think for the most part they're extremely well realized. But like the characters, particularly the killers that are original characters, are in many cases just as fun, if not more fun, than a lot of the licensed stuff. Like they're really, really cool. Like the Plague, where it's like, oh, I just vomit on people and like can infect things, and it's just like her design is so cool, right? And it's like, oh, this is a totally original character. Yeah.
Did I link that in Slack? The For Honor crossover?
You did.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually don't fully understand that.
They added like the main killer from the box of Dead by
Trapper
Daylight
in For Honor.
in
yes.
For Honor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So
Yeah.
I didn't really understand the trailer either. I saw there were hooks in the match though, like they were throwing
That's
people
so cool.
onto the hooks.
I really want to try that out. Yeah. And I love that there's like always something to work for. I really love right now. So like they just added a new survivor and they're having this Halloween event, and it's like they have this special, I guess a quick way to explain it, like there's challenges that you can work through, and it's essentially this web, and they have a special one for Halloween where it's like, oh, if you do it, you know, you have a limited amount of time to do it, you get this really sick witch outfit for the new survivor. You get this insanely awesome, like it's like you see the muscles of the doctor thing, and it's just like, it's a fun event. I feel compelled to get through this. And like,
That's all it takes.
Yeah, and the daily challenges, I think, really push you out of your comfort zone. Where it's like, oh, try to survive with the survivor that maybe you've never played before.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm only level 1, but it'll be a fun challenge. Or this killer that you've never played before. And so it's like, it's just like, my wife and I say to each other, like, why are we not sick of this? Like, we can waste entire days just playing it, and it's so much fun. And like, my annoyance with Dead by Daylight is like, it's kind of buggy to a point that is like infuriating. So they released this new survivor, right? And it's like, okay, cool. I'm excited. I bought this new survivor. Her design is so sick. And they're just like, we just like disabled this one of her perks.
Yeah.
You just can't use it right now. And it's like, well, that sucks.
Yeah.
Like
Bought this person.
yeah, like I'm excited about this person. I bought this person, and like one of her powers is just broken and it's disabled or it isn't working or something, and it's just like, this shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. But don't want to spend too much time on it. I know I've gushed about Dead by Daylight before, but I think it's just kind of remarkable that like
Still going.
I want to play it right now, dude. Like at the cost of like so many other things. It's crazy. But nothing will come at the cost of the HOTTAKE. I'm not even sure that makes sense. But I want to talk about February 2022. And the question of this HOTTAKE is too many games coming, too many, potentially great games coming out in a month a bad thing? So this list isn't even all of the games coming out in February 2022. It is just some of them. February 4th, Dying Light 2. February 17th, King of Fighters 15. February 18th, Horizon Forbidden West. February 22nd, just on this day, Destiny 2 Witch Queen, Monarch, and Sifu. 3 days later, February 25th, Elden Ring and Saints Row.
Elden Ring.
And then at some point in February, Evil Dead the game. Now I realize that
Sorry,
like
Saints Row.
you know there
Sorry, everything.
there are different markets for different games, and like not everybody wants to play everything. But like every game on this list, I have like at least some curiosity about, and it's like there's no way, like there's no way to play all these things. Obviously, you can play them later, but it begs the question, like, is this just cannibalizing these games?
We have such an embarrassment of riches. It is out of control with how many good video games there are. And before this year, I think it bothered me, you know, because I want to play everything. I want to, you know, there's so many things I want to play. So it would bother me. It was just too much. You know, you feel like you're missing the boat. You know, if something big comes out, the boat sails. But this year, I'm changing my tune. Because I think now, this year, this is the year of 8s and 9s. This, to me, is one of the best year of video games in the history of the entire medium. I'm not hyperbolic.
It's way better than people have been giving it credit
I am
for.
not being hyperbolic. There has not been a Witcher or a Bloodborne or whatever. There has not been a God of War, the one key game. Maybe Metroid Dread. I haven't even touched it yet.
It's very good.
But there are so many good games this year where it is impossible to catch all the boats. So the boats are just going, but you don't feel bad about missing it because there's more than one. You just have to pick your battles, and then by the time you can like circle back to these other games. I just think because now we've gotten like there's been a lot, but now there's just like so many that it's just
can
like
you really circle back though?
I can, yeah. I've been circling back.
Yeah.
Like Alan Wake, I feel like came out a while ago,
Not that long ago.
yeah. But like next on my list is like Deathloop and Lost Judgment. You know, I'm gonna play those during the holidays.
Yeah.
Like they'll be just as good then, if not better. You know, I know Deathloop's been getting patched. They're fixing that AI. Like
I think
games are getting better as they're out longer. So it's almost like I want the ship to sail through the rough waters so I can get on the port when they've ironed everything out.
Right.
I think an angle to look at it though is not like what are you personally going to be able to play, but like there are certain, like obviously Elden Ring is going to do well, right?
Yeah.
That game is going to make money, but it's like some of these other games, these smaller things, these
Right.
weirder things, something like Sifu, for instance, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Where it's like it's not even necessarily a matter of like will we as people in the industry be able to play it? It's more of like will this thing even get a glance at the general public? Because I remember like especially growing up, it's like. Yeah, I can afford one game this month.
Yeah.
You know, if I was like back in college,
Yep.
it's like I'm picking Elden Ring. You know,
Yeah,
that's what I'm going to choose.
It's rough because again we're an instant gratification society right now. What's next? What's next? Let me finish this. Let me consume it immediately. Let me binge it. Like, why is this only in theaters? Like, I want it at home and I want it now. I want to like nonstop. Okay, beat it next. Like, there's
Yeah.
no like. That's why I'm concerned that like maybe in a while like. So many games are just going this live service route. Like Payday 2 came out in 2013. I see like Payday 3, they're talking about it. It's like 2023 that's supposed to come out. Games are living for like 10 years
Right.
now. Because what is the point? Your game comes out, people beat it, and then they don't talk about it. Like obviously multiplayer is a little different, but I do feel like the conversation for individual games, whether it is a $200 million AAA game or an indie darling, it just moves. It moves. It doesn't matter how big or small you are. You're in the limelight for a minute, and we're on to the next.
You know what I think, like, totally encapsulates your point perfectly, is like the week Deathloop came out, it felt like overwhelming. It was like the thing
Gone.
everybody was talking about.
Gone.
It's like the game didn't come out.
It literally is like that.
Like
it's literally like that.
Like no one. And,
Yeah.
and I'm not like. attacking anybody or even
Yeah.
criticizing anybody. It's just an interesting observation.
This game got 10 out of 10s
Right.
from some of the biggest
Right.
video game outlets in the world,
Right.
and no one is talking about this game anymore.
Like,
Yeah, it blows my
but
mind.
like the silence is deafening to the point where it's
Yeah.
like, did that happen?
Yeah.
Like it's bizarre. Like obviously people move on, but it is like with such a aggression that it's like weird. Yeah, and like of course we are victims and guilty of that too. But yeah, it is odd. Yeah, for sure.
I'll flip the coin though.
Flip it.
Tales of Arise.
Yeah.
Best-selling Tales game ever.
Yeah.
WarioWare.
Obviously.
Best-selling WarioWare.
Every game is.
Like,
But
there's
every
so
game
many.
is,
We
but-
just did NPDs.
Yeah.
And so, like, well, you raised your concern about Sifu and stuff like that, and like a lot of these things,
Right.
like
Selling.
not only are we getting to that point in generation, which is great. It's like the top of a roller coaster. We're like, oh, we made it. You know, we're like. New consoles come out and stuff's expensive. It's hard to get. I don't really feel like investing. Some of our biggest teams are hard at work on it, but you're not going to hear from them for another couple of years. And then we get to 2007 and like, like you find Mass Effect 2, like all these, experiences that these devs are like, we got it. We're so in tune with this gen. And so we're getting that now. And, previously I think we would see a lot more of, people really making interesting games or just kind of mastering their craft and the sales wouldn't happen. But it's like now they actually are. Like now, for better or worse, this pandemic is just whoosh, from Pokemon cards to, video games. It's just like all these industries are bursting. So I am curious. I think Sifu is like the thing I'm mostly worried about. But I'm trying to think, is that the devs' first thing or what did they do previously? I don't know how much is writing on that. Because it might just find its own enough people, to
Yeah, Jones, you bring up an interesting point, and I wasn't thinking about it until you started talking, but it's funny because I think growing up, the culture of video games was so different where, like, playing video games was a more singular thing where, like, if I asked somebody, like, oh, do you play video games? I would assume a lot of shared experiences. It's like, oh yeah, they played this, and this. I also played this, and this. It just felt like the landscape was a little bit more sparse. Whereas like something like Destiny 2 Witch Queen, it's like there's such a large audience where it's like, yeah, of course they're gonna play it. They've been playing Destiny for years. Like they probably don't even really care about a lot of the stuff on this list. Like even something like King of Fighters 15, like that has this audience that's gonna be that's gonna show up probably, right? And so. Yeah, I
want to
wonder.
play every single one of those.
I wonder if like my old way of thinking or like the way that I grew up is like clashing with like not being able to comprehend, I suppose, how truly vast and diverse playing video games is. Now.
and just we're constantly renegotiating the word launch. Like, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
My
that's depressing.
buddies. I went to
Yeah.
their bachelor party last night. My buddies are like getting in No Man's Sky now, and they're like, oh, there's a lot of fun things to do. One of the guys there was like, he's like, I just started it 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I am obsessed with Fallout 76. And it's like,
Nice.
yeah, right now there's a lot of stuff to do.
Right.
He has such a huge roadmap in his mind of like, there's a lot of stuff I got to do, and that stuff just wasn't there. And so it's just like just a whole different experience. Yeah. And so. New World was funny. While I was like, there were just some people I was like, oh, there's a queue. Well, I'll do something else. And some people were like, a queue. So it's like we all have different temperaments. We all have different expectations, and we all find these games at different times. Brad just got to level 60 in Final Fantasy 11, man. It's like,
I think he got to level 90.
Did he get to the
maniac.
What's the max level?
I have no clue.
Yeah, I think he got. I think it was higher than that. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah. So I think we were kind of averse to the live service model, but it's kind of more of it. It's like dev service model. It's like these companies need to know that people can support them and if they want to. And it kind of reeks of, in some ways of like that gotcha mobile aesthetic, but it's a different way to get invested in the things. It's why I always wonder, like if I didn't have this job, I think I'd play Grand Theft Auto Online like every day. I think that's like the only I would be, no matter what, like I do mobile games. I kind of get a little taste of that now because I'm able to just like on the bathroom, on the toilet, like, all right, I did it. I did my dailies. Okay. But yeah, lots of games.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think my biggest concerns, which is something that we've hemmed and hawed about on Frame Trap quite a bit, but like is what Huber is saying with the conversation. Like when I say like Deathloop is already over, I don't say that with like glee. I say like like I certainly have criticisms of Deathloop, but I thought it was a great game that I had a great time with. And it's like I wish there was almost like more time dissecting it.
Yeah,
like it's just like
same.
It's like it just feels like like input output so much where it's like input, check the review scores, watch the stream, play the game, output, like on to the next thing. Where it's like, well, let's talk about like
That's why I
the
love
level
Goaties.
design. Let's
Yeah.
talk about like
Yeah.
the story a little bit. Like let's dig into like let's have a conversation. It's just it's not that those things are not happening. They totally are, but it's just like the pace is so accelerated that like
Now the conversation is Guardians.
is it?
It will be.
It was.
Yeah.
We're already, we're at the
end of the show now.
everybody's talking about these
I think-
emails. That's what they're talking about.
I think New World is so interesting because like I admittedly I haven't touched New World, so I'm definitely an outsider looking in. But there was such a like bubble around that game, and then on the last episode of Frame Trap, you and Brad were talking about it. And it sounded like so different and weird, and like it already seems over. And I may be prematurely calling it.
PC Gamer's review of it is really good, and it kind of taps into like everything I feared about the game, and that. But they actually say they're like, "Yo, honeymoon phase is over."
Yeah.
Like
Right.
in the first couple weeks of an MMO launch is
Right.
so magical, but like now that is gone. So here's the review. Here's how this game is now.
But that's such a
You know?
fascinating thing. Like, and it is not unique. I would say to this time. Like there were definitely back in the day, like MMOs would be. This has happened plenty of times with MMOs, is what I'm saying. But it's still so fascinating where like New World can be like so explosive and so popular that like people are waiting to get in, and like it's just like you just envision like people banging at the doors,
Yeah.
and then it's just like. I'm over it.
Yeah.
You know, like, and that
Yeah.
just that like raw human experience of like feeling that hunger so intensely, and then like not even wanting to look at it anymore. Like it's that's just like a fascinating thing about human beings. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know. I will never get over like that curiosity. I
Yeah.
guess, but
Gotta wait for Goaties.
got over
Those conversations come full circle. You know, Deathloop will lean into that level design during Goaties. That's the best part.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Goaties that I've definitely felt recently, I especially felt last year, is like sometimes I don't even know how to make a case for something because it's like this is so fundamentally different than this other thing. I can't.
I know.
I
right?
can't strictly argue that it's better or worse, and
Yeah.
that feeling has only gotten more pronounced with time.
And other people talk, and so your estimation just kind of starts shaking around. You're like,
Right.
yeah, maybe it's not that great. And then like
Right.
10 minutes go by, and all of a sudden you'll think of something and be like, no, wait, it is great. Wait.
Right.
Yeah, because it's how do you think of all of these? And I think one thing that might have to do with it too is like we're comparing it to a medium of like, yeah, TV shows can get crazy long, but like movies are 2 hours, and you know, like there's a lot of other media that we can absorb really quickly. Whereas like if we were to watch like WandaVision and then talk about it later, even the WandaVision 10 episodes or whatever, and the whole conversation we had after is still like 20% of Persona 5. So it's like by the time you're done with a big game, I'm done.
No, it's
like
like
I did it.
5%.
It took a lot of, like I'm really excited for Far Cry 6. I'm probably going to physically touch every single inch of that map.
Yeah.
But like when I hit credits, goodbye. Like
Yeah.
I still haven't played the second Witcher DLC, which I'm sure is immaculate, but like I stopped playing Witcher, and that was the thing I had to like, woof, like lived in this world for a long, long time. So
Yeah, sometimes
just that length, I wonder if it has something to do with it.
That sometimes it's such a double-edged sword because you mentioned like if you weren't doing this job, you would be like playing Grand Theft Auto
14
Online
or 14
Yeah.
or something. Yeah.
and like
Some big thing.
I fucking adore Metroid Dread, and it's like if something wasn't, and maybe like even not just doing this job, but just being so invested in like I want to play everything all the time, and so that's hard. But like it's like man, like I really want to go and 100% Metroid Dread and try out hard mode and do all
Yeah.
this stuff, but it's like
Do you feel?
Endwalker is like breathing down my neck.
Do you
and
feel
so many
though,
things.
like I was saying earlier? Do you feel like this year though it's affected me less missing games this year because there are so many? I feel like even 2 years ago, if a big game out, like that was the one you needed to be playing at that exact moment. But now there's just so many options where it's like, no, I'm good. I'll get to you when I get to you.
Yeah.
Like I feel like this is the first year that I've been okay waiting not only for patches and stuff, but for sales. Like, I'm going to get Deathloop and Lost Judgment on a sale when that goes down. I'm waiting for a sale. They'll be patched. Like,
You know what it is?
It feels easier now.
I think what has lessened the sting in a way, even though I still feel it very intensely, is what I have been able to put my time into, what I've chose to put time into, has not disappointed me.
Yeah.
Sure.
There've just been like there's so much, but like when I head in a direction, it's been awesome.
Yes.
And so I think that has made it more satisfying. Like there hasn't been like there have been things that I've been looking really forward to, like Psychonauts 2. It's like, no, that was fucking awesome, you know. And it's like so there is so much, but at least a lot of the quality has been there. And honestly, it wasn't that long ago where like I feel like we would have a game come out and it'd be like a high profile disaster where it's like, oh, this game doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that there aren't bugs or there aren't problems or anything, but that seems to have lessened. And I feel a lot of what I've been playing, you know, has been at a pretty high level of quality.
Totally.
Also, like, I don't play Dead by Daylight. So there's a lot of things going on in that universe that just don't exist for me, and I'm focused on other things.
Right.
And I remember one moment that made me aware of just kind of how much I can do as one person in this industry. I remember Destiny 2 launching, and a lot of Destiny 2 players were like, nah. They were just like, I don't know why we got it 2. I don't know why. There's a wealth of just all sorts of issues that people were having. And then the Destiny 2 chatter just kind of went away. And then it won the Game Award. It was like for like best multiplayer game. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And I remember going to that, just grabbing someone I knew who played Destiny 2 at the party afterward. And I was like, what happened? And they're like, dude, Destiny 2 is amazing. And I'm like, when did that happen? And they're like, well, gradually. But where it's at now is really exciting. And I was like, I missed that. Like, here's this game completely went through a transformation enough to win an award that I attended the award ceremony of. It was like, like it's crazy that you know, on the outside looking in, like you are with New World, it's like launches and trailers. There's not many opportunities to like, you know, benchmark like where a game is at and what's going on.
Yeah.
That's why I love, even if we don't mention the podcast, I love when I'll just be going through games industry up biz or something, and they're like, hey, this one franchise just hit this cool benchmark. You know, yay. Let's celebrate it. You don't have to play it, but we can at least talk about it for 5 minutes.
And if sales and budgets weren't so secretive, it would maybe like take the sting out of it too. Because it's like every game that comes out now is the best selling in a franchise. It's just like the way it is. More gamers than ever, easier access than ever. But it's like the conversation goes away. But if they still sold the most, that's all they really care about, right?
Oh,
Isn't
absolutely.
that's a win?
Yeah.
So like, we only
Crank
talked
it out, baby.
Yeah, we only talked about Dread for a week there, but like, Mercury's Steam is up here now. You know, their reputation has gone up. The sales were good. Like, so that's something.
Number 1 on the eShop. Job done.
Job well done.
Oh, it's kind of depressing. All right. Are we ready for some emails?
Because I can't, like, for us, it's just like we get hyped for a game, we play it, and that's it. But like, can you imagine working on a game?
That's the
for
nature
like
of the
7
biz.
years of your life or something, working on something, and then it comes out, and it's like,
well, imagine
no one's talking about it anymore. Like,
imagine getting up the next day after you announce something, like the next day, and you're like, what just happened? You know, it's like that was such a rush because we were just waiting for that for so long. And
Yes, I'm sure that does happen, but at the same time, like there has to just be some innate pleasure in the craft itself, where it's like,
and when it's
I
done,
just
you
made this.
ship it. You're just like, it's done.
Yeah,
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Our first email comes in from Michael, who says, "Phantom content amidst the pandemic." Really interesting title. Hi, Ben and Company. This is something that has bothered me since Resident Evil 8, and again after Metroid Dread. While I love both games, I believe they have pronounced indicators of cut content. I don't want to spoil anything, but I will summarize it as payoffs that never happen and story threads that are abruptly severed. I understand that games change constantly throughout development, but often you wouldn't know cuts were made until a developer interview or concept art spilled out. They are purposely smoothed over. Spelled it out, excuse me. With the pandemic, I wonder if cuts were made that could not be hidden due to their severity. It's miraculous these games came out, but I keep wondering, are there scars of the pandemic in these phenomenal games?
I have no idea. I know they cut that. I know they cut that section in Village. No spoilers, but who knows if that was because of COVID or what the reasoning behind that was. But I mean, I would assume, but I have no facts to back any of this up.
Yeah.
But, I know movies have shipped. I remember the Blacklist show. Remember that? They did the finale in like CG and stuff because they couldn't. Remember that? Like CG Spader or whatever. So, I mean, the pandemic has caused a lot of chaos in all media. But, yeah, I don't really know.
I'm sure, I guarantee that there are some unique challenges to COVID that have created problems. But, like, there are countless games. Making games is nigh impossible. And, like, you always hear... there are countless stories of very high-profile games that you probably love, where they're like, "Yeah, we had this huge idea and we ran out of time. We just couldn't do it." And so, I think it is. While I think this is an interesting question, a good question, and it'll be curious to see what stories come out. I don't know how different it is than the normal tumultuous, hellish process of making games.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe there is a separation, but it's hard to do that in my mind.
Like back when God of War 3 came out, there was no pandemic, but like famously that final boss was nerfed to hell. Like
Metal Gear Solid 5.
Metal Gear Solid Phantom Pain. Like, yeah.
I remember one of mine was it's now hopping because GTA Online is going to add everything to that map that they possibly can. But that racetrack, man, it was like opening soon. Like 2015, I'm like, cool. That took 4 or 5 years, but it's amazing now.
The building under construction in GTA Online, people did the in-game math. They calculated how long a day is and how many days it's been in GTA Online. So the building has been under construction for like 70 years or some crazy number. It's so fun.
But
it's so fun.
And I loved blood sniffing Forza Horizon, where he was telling me in the preview, he would drive to some area and he's like, "There's gonna be a challenge here." You could just tell. Some like dirt patch. He's like, yeah. This is where it's going down.
I pre-installed Forza Horizon 5, 103 gigs, baby.
When is that out?
Early
February.
November?
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, God.
November.
No, early November. Yeah, I don't remember
that
exactly.
Is soon.
I know.
I'm all in on that. Though.
I am very excited.
I'm all
Hubert,
in.
did you know that they're remastering all 3 Grand Theft Auto games that were on the PlayStation 2?
Also November.
Please continue with your mouse,
Our
we
next
streaming that, or are you streaming that? We should play together. That'd be fun. Just for a little bit.
GTA 3 was the last game I ever streamed game trailers. It's a little emotional.
Yeah. Full circle, Jones. Let's go.
Our next email comes in from Jovan. Hey, Ben and Allies. PlayStation games are slowly making their way to PC. Uncharted and God of War ports are in the works, and PC fans are excited. There is, however, a vocal community against this, the PlayStation purists, and for a long while, I was one of them. I love the PlayStation brand so much and wanted to see these big titles only available on PlayStation systems. I suppose in retrospect it had an aura of exclusivity, or maybe it was a giant FU to all those Nintendo and Xbox fans with their exclusives. But mainly, I think my mindset was geared to think that not everyone can play these games, so it must be special for me. However, times have changed. These ports of AAA games are coming, and I, for one, welcome them. I'd love to see a wider audience reaction to these games. No longer are we going to see the all too common "I wish this was on PC" comment when scrolling at a view trailer. It's just interesting to think that less than 5 years ago, I was a diehard PlayStation fan, but now I jump between all of them and am glad these games can be embraced by a larger community. Maybe I'm just too old for console wars. What are your thoughts on exclusivity? Have you ever thought the same way I did? I know that Damiani had similar sentiments when he had his N64 when challenged by his school pals with PS1s. Would Nintendo games officially on PC be a dream, or would you prefer they stayed on Nintendo for the legacy of the company? Finally, what do you hope to see comes to PC next?
Competition is essential for this industry. It is absolutely essential. But let everyone play everything.
Sure.
You know? Like when exclusivity has made me a Sony fan.
Yeah.
And that's not going to go away like probably anytime soon. But like during Xbox versus Sony, it was like nothing personal, but Sony has more games that you can only play there that I want to play. Yeah. I'll still play Xbox, but like I like these exclusives more. Yeah. So I mean that's natural, but like the fact that PC gets them so late, I mean, who knows if that's going to change? You know, if it was like day and date, PlayStation and PC version.
Oh, it definitely feels.
It feels like it'll get there, right?
Yeah, it definitely feels like it's casting a line out.
Yeah.
And like, yeah.
Yeah. I I don't know. I mean, I don't subscribe to console wars whatsoever. You know, if you you love PC, dude.
Yeah.
Like if you want to play this thing on
said competition drives
Competition
this industry.
is
And
good.
then now you're saying
but like there's a fine line with console
Yes.
wars, you know? It's like
course, of
criticism versus hate.
Yes,
Right.
of course,
It's
of
like
course.
totally.
Toxicity. of
It's
course.
like so toxic to be like, why should those people be able to play this game now?
Yes, exactly.
It's like, let them freaking play it.
If,
Right.
if you have a preference, if you're like, yeah, PlayStation's my favorite, or
Yeah.
Xbox or whatever, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with being like more into something than another thing. Like that's natural. Everyone has that.
Yeah.
But if you're like, if it makes you so mad that you have to like leave nasty comments or attack people, you are literally a baby.
And PC has always been like in its corner, you know? It's neutral. It's Switzerland in the industry.
Switzerland.
Like, no quarrel. We're over here
Right.
doing our PC things. Like, you're not getting God of War on Switch or God of War on Xbox.
Right.
You're getting it on PC.
And-
like,
yeah.
PC's getting Xbox games. PC's getting Monster Hunter Rise Switch games.
Yeah.
PC's getting PlayStation. It is its own thing over here, you know?
Right.
These three consoles are still competing with each other, but, like, PC's
Another
doing
fun
its
thing from the MPDs, this last from September. If you ask Daniel Bloodworth, he's like, no way in hell is that happening in October. But in September, they broke Nintendo's streak because Sony would always make the most hardware money and Nintendo would sell the most units. And in September, Sony took both. They were like, we sold the most units, we made the most money, we're the best console in September 2021. So yeah, it's like I respect holding on to that brand. That's something Nintendo will do forever. That'll be a big deal. Yeah, if they break the seal. It's just like,
Somehow
Odyssey's on
Mario.
PC.
Yeah.
I would be like, this feels weird.
Yeah.
I'm playing a Mario game with an
Nintendo-
Xbox controller. What? Like,
Nintendo will never break the
right?
seal.
Yeah, that'll be shocking. But yeah, they're just at this point because they're on top. I think they would be throwing away money to not put them on other consoles. And even something like Days Gone, it's not like, oh, was that a PlayStation game? It's like it obviously was. Like God of War is Uncharted. Like all these brands are still. You immediately
And shout
associate
out
with them with
to-
the brand, and I don't think anything's been compromised. Like
Yeah.
I don't feel like there's anything's weird.
How can you be mad when it's like, oh yeah, like more people get to play this great
More
game
people
that
get
I
to
love.
play it. More
Yeah.
people get to talk about God of War. It gets to be
Yeah.
brought back into the conversation
Yeah.
as the greatest video game of all time.
The thing you love gets better.
Yeah. And like mods. Shout out to the PC modding community. Like, let's do some weird things with these games. Like Resident Evil 3 Remake
that shows confidence.
on PC is like an entirely different beast with all these skins.
That you're like, my brand can survive
Yeah.
PC people coming in and making it look a little silly. But
What's so funny about PC mods is like you're right where it's like what crazy things they can do, but there's always one thing that they will do no matter what. If they can
nude mods.
make it nude,
Everyone's
they will.
nude,
Like
yeah.
it's just like it's just so funny. Like with absolute certainty,
Yeah.
like we
I just
will
picture
give
the
you
mod
nudity.
site with a flag.
Yeah.
You know, like going, it's like, if we can, we will.
Yeah.
Starship
It's
Troopers.
just like boom, like we will give you nudity.
yeah.
So
Well,
funny.
I was with my buddies last night at the
so
bachelor party. We were
funny.
talking about VR. And it was like, how is VR tech? And it's like, it's good. It's good. The porn industry is really going to push it to the point where we need it to be. They're going to drive technology, funding, all,
Yeah.
if we're lucky. They backed us up before. They'll be there for us in the future. But yeah.
Is VR porn still like a hot thing?
Well, it depends. A popular thing or hot thing. I mean, these are two different
yeah.
conversations.
Popular thing, I suppose. I mean, whatever.
But I mean, it's not going to go away. Hopefully, we'll get Bloodborne eventually. And I just think,
Please,
I think
yes.
it's
What-
it's a
what
treat.
a weird holdout.
They're saving it up. They don't want to step on Elden Ring's shoes.
I mean, the
feel like.
dream is the
It
holdout
won't.
means stuff is
They're
happening.
waiting.
you
They're
know?
waiting.
Yeah.
Sometime next year. Sometime next year. I feel it. Feel it in my bones.
I mean, Mass Effect Legendary Edition seemed so obvious, and it took a long time, but then
It
boop,
did.
there it is, and it's great.
Yeah.
Like, so.
Yeah, hey, you're right.
we go.
You're
Just
just
let
right.
don't gatekeep. Like let people play what they want to play. Like it's
Yeah.
not a big deal. How is it hurting you?
But like, just
I mean-
imagine, like, okay, hypothetically, imagine you're a God of War fan.
Yeah.
You love God of War.
Yeah.
You've got the platinum. You're fucking stoked. and it's like, okay, imagine like the conversation. There's two. Let's hypothetically, there's two directions you can go.
Mm-hmm.
One direction is you are that asshole where you like this sucks. I'm so mad about this. It should be PlayStation only. It's like that conversation is an immediate dead end.
Yeah.
Imagine if you like reach out to PC players and you're like, oh man, how was your experience? It was cool. Like,
Yeah.
like imagine just like
have you played God of
broadening your
War?
network and like having more fulfilling and enriching human conversations that just make your life better. Like imagine just going that direction.
10 out of 10, dude.
I don't know.
10
I
out
don't
of
know.
10, Ben.
It's
My
just
God.
like it's like for your own entertainment.
Yeah.
The other path is more interesting.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know.
Because what is the logical criticism here? Is there an actual like take where this is
It's-
that I guess
it's
of
why I
like
mentioned
It's a sense of
brand.
ownership.
I get
why-
like
yes.
like hey, I spent $400 on my PlayStation to play God of War.
Yes.
Right.
But now it's elsewhere. I could have not spent that money. Is that the main take?
Yeah.
What's
It
what's
is-
the counter to that take?
Is my special thing is less special because more it's like it is like a fundamental human thing. It's like when a band gets big, like the classic example, like when a band gets big and you always
Yeah.
have those fans that are like, oh man, they so loud, like they're really
Yeah.
good. It's like your little clubhouse, you know, is
Yeah. Compromise.
compromised. Yeah.
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 All right.
More
all
the
right.
merrier.
The more the merrier. Like I don't know. There's no point. There's
There's
no
no
fun
point.
rambling anymore. All right.
There's no point.
Preaching the choir.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our last email comes in. I'm going to mispronounce his name. I'm sorry. Guilherme, I think is how you say that. Hello, allies. Guy from Brazil here. In your opinion, what are the differences between evaluating a game for review and evaluating it for GOTY or some similar ranking? I love this question. For example, last year I gave FF7 Remake a 9 and Hades a 10, but FF7 Remake was my GOTY. Does this make sense to you? Yes, it does. Can you think of any example that you like game A more than game B, but you recommend game B more? Thanks for what you do.
One obvious thing is if you watch any GOTYs we've ever done, like no one ever brought up review scores. It's sort of like doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's not information. It's like you're talking about so many different variables.
Yeah.
I can
You
remember.
really need to connect at GOTYs with like where am I?
I
at
can
now? Like, how
remember
much did
though.
that-
It's really nice because Bloodworth, I feel like, will usually bring all the 8s and above that we score, like like an outline.
Oh,
Of like,
sure.
yo, here's the games we gave like an 8
yeah,
or higher.
never stop
just as,
bringing titles up,
yeah,
but just
yeah.
this idea of like, well, if you look at Metacritic to win an argument,
Yeah.
it's like what? That doesn't, that's not connecting me, especially if I haven't spent a lot of time with the game. It's like I want to hear from people.
Life is Strange is like the best example of this for me because I acknowledge that maybe they aren't for everyone and like they're not perfect and they have a little bit of jank or some problems here and there, but it's my GOTY,
Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
like
Yeah.
I mean, you're hitting on it exactly. It drives me nuts, and there's no point in ranting about review scores because you're never going to change anyone's mind. But like, it breaks people's brains where they're like, you gave this thing a higher score and this thing a lower score. How can you like this thing more? And it's like of course that's possible.
yeah.
Like, do you not have anything in your life that you recognize the flaws of, but you love absolutely? Like, come on, like you can when evaluating Game of the Year, it's like what's so beautiful about Game of the Year is you get to break free from that distillation down to a number and be like, yes, I recognize that this has this problem or the frame rate is bad or whatever, but like nothing emotionally moved me more this year, right? And you get to have those conversations. And so it's like, yeah, absolutely something can have a longer term impact on you beyond the scope of, a 2-week review.
And I like GOTY fatigue because it's fun to like weigh in on something that I'm familiar with, but I didn't experience a lot of it. And like, there's clearly two allies that like these are the two, like they're the two people, and they have kind of conflicting opinions.
Yes.
And a lot of time, it's almost kind of like how long you're willing to run the race that kind of lets me see like. Because we've had the same conversation 5 times. We keep going in circles for the last 15 minutes, and then I see one person be like, "Well, like, just kind of, I enjoyed it," and the other person's like, "No." Like, this is the best game in this category. And it's like, that's what I'm talking about. This is where it's like, I'm so ironclad in this idea. But like best character, best narrative, there's a lot of times where I've come in and been like, hey, this. And 10 minutes later, I'm like, yeah, you know what?
Yeah.
It's just not, now it's the 3rd time we're arguing that point and I'm out of steam. I have no more ammo. And so like, okay, I enjoyed it, but it's clear, wow, this game really touched Ben or, or Bloodworth or something. It's like, that's really fun to see. It's like surprises.
The games... The GOTY, the most painful part of GOTY are the games that like you loved, but you also are like, this isn't good enough to put up a fight. Like there's always like, I don't know, 2 or 3 of those games where you're like, I wish I could, or even like the 8s where it's like, I wish I could give this more of a platform, but it just like doesn't hold a candle to, like a God of War or a Breath of the Wild or something. So.
Yeah.
I think when you're reviewing stuff, like what it does for the franchise is like, well, it's like if I can enjoy the game, it's not really gonna like. I might, discuss it or think about it. It's not gonna like ding a score. Whereas like when you get into GOTYs, like a lot of stuff comes up where it's like, where are we now with this genre at the end of the year?
Right.
Where it's like kind of unfair to like levy against like some weird puzzle game that you're just rating against like maybe other puzzle games from the last couple of years.
Right.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing.
Good stuff. Good question. Thank you to everybody who wrote in. If you would like to send an email to FrameTrap, the email address is askeasyallies@gmail.com. One more time, that is askeasyallies@gmail.com. Thank you so much to my passionate panelists, Brandon Jones and Michael Huber. Until next time.